Hello everybody, and welcome. You do not need to adjust your streaming screens, unless of course they do need adjustment, because you are having a crisis. It is I, Crisis with a K, coming to you live from a particularly rainy morning here in New Zealand, and I am here with the poll list, my weekly show going over all of the comics out. Not quite this week, we're actually a month behind. It is the comics of June 11th, and underway crisply right at the start here. So we're going to talk to everybody. We're going to go over every comic that was out this week. But first, we are going to talk about my top comic series of 2025. And guess what? For those of you who are regular viewers, my top 12 did not change this week. So instead of just repeating a top 12 that you probably have committed to memory from last week already, I imagine, instead, we are going to do my top 20. You're going to get a peek a little bit further down into my choices. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear, but there's nothing I can do about that right now. So let's begin. Gosh, how am I going to count to 20? We know I'm not good at this. Okay, at number 20, Doom Academy, and a completely charming book and extension of Strange Academy. Number 19, Star Wars Jedi Knights. Despite not really liking issue number 3, this Mark Guggenheim and Muzukov series on art has been extraordinary. Oh my gosh, I have 20 to get through. At number 18, we have Doom's Division, which is the Tiger Division, the Pan-Asian team, but under the guise of Doom, it's also secretly a mutant book. Next, we have at number 17, Jason Aaron, Moment Ashford, Matthew Wilson, and Becca Carey at Bug Wars. Then we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, also by Jason Aaron, and here, the ongoing art by Juan Ferrer. We're going to talk about it today. Then we have Mouse Guard, Dawn of the Black Axe. I know the third issue is out. I have not read it yet because I am behind, but I am really loving it. Then, The Amazing Spider-Man. I am totally enamored with his new run by Joe Kelly and Pepe Larraz, despite a particularly terrible giant-size issue out this week. And then, just missing my top 12 is Win the Power of Blood by James Tinney and Michael Dylanas. Oh gosh, I can never say his name. But now we're into the top 12 that you know. Out of Alcatraz, Ghost Box, Detective Comics, Doctor Strange of Asgard, Jump Scare, The Avengers, Tin Can Society, Solomon Kane, Nice House by the Sea, and my number 3, Batman Dark Patterns. Number 2, we're taking everyone down with us. And number 1, I know that there's a number 5 issue out last week. I am not caught up to it yet. It's part of my incentive to keep going, is FML by Kelly Sue DeConnick, David Lopez, Chris, Peter, and Clayton Cowles. But wait, that's not all we do at the beginning of the show as quick as possible and as manically as possible. We also do the top picks of the week. So when I review all the comics for my pull list, I surmise what my top books of the week may turn out to be, and then I do the reading, and then it turns out sometimes that's not the case. So let's look at what that is for DC, Marvel, Image, and Indie. At DC, I was quite sure that would be Batman Dark Patterns, despite being a little softer on the last issue. Number 6 is the first issue of a new arc, and I was right. This was a stunner. I cannot wait to talk to you about it this week. At Marvel, my pick of the week was Runaways. This is my comfort comic by Rainbow Rowell. I love the 2017 run so much. The whole team is pretty much back together here, although we have Elena Casagrande on art rather than Andre Genele or Chris Anka. And guess what? This was my Marvel pick of the week. So at this point, I'm like, whoa, am I going 4 for 4? That I have my taste become so refined that I can predict them this accurately? So for Image, not the best week of Image on deck, but I was like, hey, I really like the first issue of Lost Fantasy. Perhaps Kurt Perez is going to get me with the second one. No, I didn't like it so much, but this was a known factor. I often like his number ones better than his any other numbers. Kingspawn, not a terrific book, but a book that pleased me this week, and at Image's offerings this week, pleasing was enough. And then Indie, I assumed it would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's been persistently in my top 20, as you just saw, but actually, just by a hair, they're both extraordinarily good issues. I just slightly preferred Conan the Barbarian. Okay. So that's my top picks of the week. Now let's say hello to the chat. I saw a lot of you in this right before we began, which is wonderful and lovely. And then we will get into my moment of crisis. I do have one in mind for today. And then we will get into the books. So Cruel Angel was the first one in this week. Time for epic rants and water breaks. Yes, because I will warn you all, a vague disclaimer is nobody's friend, that this was my second lowest rated week of the year so far. So there were some good comics in there, as we just saw in my picks of the week, but generally this is going to be a little bit more on the rant side than on the rave side. Rapto Ranter's on vacation with 19 family members. I can't even think of 19 people who I would want to go to a second location with. So bless you on that one. No, I'm not quite up to Spidey Wolverine number 2. I'm not sure when it is. Maybe next week. Bunk in the top 3 already at June 11th. Why? That was practically just a month ago. You know, part of me is kind of just comfortable with the month ago, and you guys don't seem like you're that bothered by me talking about older comic books, but I want to be caught up to the current stuff so that I can, like, talk about things like Kelly Sue DeConnick's, you know, FML. But being a month back, it's kind of comfortable. Some of the books are already on DC Ultra sometimes, depending on how the days work out, so that is pretty all right. Superjob is here. Hello to Superjob, one of our regulars. Is that magic peeking through my hair this time on the cover thumbnail? It was, and that's the first main cover that has not been by J. Scott Campbell, who I love from my Image 90 Days from Gen 13, one of my favorite comic books, but I don't think he was necessarily the best artist to be doing those magic covers, and I absolutely loved that cover. Cedric and Ellen, probably Ellen, who's usually the one watching her. Wait, here's my test. Do I remember the names of the cats? One of them is named Aurora, and the other one is named Falco after the rock singer, not Falcor after the dragon in Neverending Story. Did I check out Stromae? It's a band or an artist that they recommended to me last week on Jammin' on Comics with Omnidog. I, as you might imagine, have a huge process that I go through for music listening, not too dissimilar to my process to new comic reading, and I get a big pile of music, I wait like a month or two, and then I like get it all queued up on my playlist, and I start going through it, and then that takes years. So no, I have not listened to it yet. Ryan Bragg saying hello to everybody. Hank saying he'll be checking out the stream. Missed last week, unfortunately. Just got back from vacation with a nice haul of books to read. My big haul that I've been waiting to do, a haul show, has cleared customs. It might get here tomorrow. I'm so excited. Logan Wayne, hello to you. Hoping everyone's doing well. Javier Hernandez, second worst new comic book day. Oh no! Hopefully I enjoyed the new Avengers, because I did. Can't wait to watch in a bit. Ooh, I do have opinions about that issue. Stoops is here. Yeah, good times. Hello, Stoops. Edwin Billy Eddie Sierra saying hello to the Crushers. I'm looking forward to another fun live stream. Max is here. Matt, I don't know who that is, but I mean, Matt H is Matt, but this is not Matt H, this is Max. Max is here. I don't even know what the Beetle Bop is. As I was going to sleep last night at like 1 o'clock in the morning, he's like, I might start the Beetle Bop. So I don't even know. It'll be a total surprise to me. But he has figured out how to use his little wrench powers. And so you can click on that right now and bookmark it to watch it. Remember, we like you to watch a minimum of 4 times just so it sinks in. In reality, that sounds like a joke about me wanting to increase his views, and it is. But in reality, when I listen to new music, and it doesn't suck, I do try to listen to every song 4 times to let it sink in, which is why I need the database and, you know, everything in my life is a spreadsheet. Because if I just listen to it once and I claim that I like it, who knows? And that's not going to, like, sink into my brain. So, anyway, whole other topic. Helen is here saying hello, picking up my partner up from the airport, but then we'll be lurking in the stream after. Kane is here. Hello to Kane and happy Sunday. I learned that I've been saying this name wrong for 6 months, and I have not been corrected, but now I stand corrected. It's more like Yone. Yeah, I know there's a Y sound, but we know I'm terrible at pronouncing everything, even words like comments and comics. Seeing any kiwi birds outside my window, well, you know they don't fly, right? I mean, technically I'm seeing many kiwi birds, but I'm not seeing any kiwi birds. Because in New Zealand, if you say just kiwi, you mean the people, or like just an adjective. If you say kiwi fruit, you mean the fruit, which is actually a Chinese gooseberry. And then if you say kiwi birds, you mean that particular bird. But it's really wonderful here because New Zealand is relatively predator free, except for cats, which are a problem. There are beautiful birds everywhere. I mean, tui, you should look up the look and the call of a tui sometime online, are just the most beautiful things in the world. And I used to hate birds when I lived in the United States. Like the bane of my existence was birds chirping outside my window. Like I would do anything I'd wear earplugs, I would, wear a sleep mask, I would have white noise, anything. Because the birds in the Philadelphia area, they were just obnoxious. They were like, chirp, chirp, mother effing chirp, chirp, you sick bastard, chirp. And I was like, this is not entertaining. But here, you wake up and it's like, boo! And it's really pleasant, in my opinion. And we know when I start making crazy noises early in the stream, that messes up my lips, so we're going to just end the bird calls there. Jamie C47 saying, oh, is that a new... I can't see because I don't have my glasses on yet. Is that a new profile picture for you? I think it is. After gentle prodding, I finally got a profile picture. See, I pay attention to all of you. Also, my hearing has improved again, thankfully, after my sudden deafness a couple weeks ago. Yeah, we were all concerned about that. And he is repping some Ileana Rasputin in that profile pic from her original mini-series. Bunkmaster chiming back in saying everybody should go listen to the Beetle Bop. It's my favorite Beatles song. Now, could I guess what Bunkmaster's favorite Beatles song is? Then people were talking about wrestling. James Abel, is that a Cookie Monster emoji? I didn't even know that existed. And then Cedric and Ellen, probably Ellen checking back in. Adrian Montanez, and One Wheelchair X, who had his own live stream on YouTube last week, not just a TikTok, talking comprehensively about all of the upcoming X-Men Revelations books when they go into this new age of Revelation. You will not see me doing that on this channel because I don't give a F about that. So if you want full coverage of all 16 of those books, including speculation of who the creative teams and stars might be, go to One Wheelchair X's channel. It was really fun to pop into his live and type as quickly as I could type while he was trying to talk to turn the tables a little bit. So that was a lot of fun. And then we get all the way to the mic check. Let me just say hi to a couple more human beings. I think 0029. Reaper, of course, here in the commentary, and there were some new announcements on Near Mint Condition that went live about 6 or 7 hours ago, so if you haven't seen those, pretty big one for me. My brand is so strong that people were like, these are great Crisis announcements. Gotta love that. Lance McNair is here, having seen Superman 3 times. Wow. And Johnny is here from New York. Omnibo is here from Australia. Michael Wesleyus and Taylor Made. Okay. So now I get to do a moment of crisis, which means I need the banner. This one occurred to me last night, so I've been stewing on it a little bit, but I haven't said any of the words out loud, so I promise it is just as unrehearsed as it always is. And so this week's moment of crisis, I hope I haven't done this one before, is about, here we go, me looking at my flyaways instead of talking. Okay. This week's moment of crisis is about the idea of lost media, and that there are different levels of lost media, and then we get to have found media. So lost media can mean any kind of media that we can't readily access in the present day. But there are a lot of different versions of that, right? I mean, something that was lost in the fire of the Library of Alexandria is probably truly lost, although I learned not really, but that's a moment of crisis for another time. Books that were set on fire at the Institute of Research for Sexuality in Nazi era Germany. Some of that research was like original research that there are only limited amounts published. They could be gone forever, right? So some things, when it's lost media, it means truly we have no way to reconstruct it. We only have the memories of people who maybe experienced it and wrote about it. That's similar to a more modern form of lost media, like the lost episodes of Doctor Who. So if you're not a big Whovian, which I'm not, but I know this story, Doctor Who originally was broadcast on the BBC, and BBC and cost-cutting measures would just record other things right over those masters to broadcast other things. And so a lot of the original series with the original First Doctor, there are no video or tape versions of that extant. And so, but a lot of people saw that. It was broadcast widely. It was before there were VCRs, but some people managed to have recordings that they made copies of within the BBC. And even those that didn't, sometimes there were production stills, and of course there were still scripts. So we'd be able to like reconstitute that lost media. Now, no comic book is ever truly lost media, because somewhere there's probably a copy of that comic book, unless they have all been pulped, right? So even if we're not talking about Marvel and DC, which at this point, you know, no Marvel and DC book is truly lost. Even if we're talking about small indie comics from the 50s and 60s, somebody's got a copy of that, right? Somebody's got a copy of the early Charlton comics before DC had bought them. And even if we go indier than that, right, somebody's got one somewhere. None of it is truly lost. Even the smallest print run of any of those were probably into the hundreds of thousands, because they were in newsstands all around the world, all around America. And but certainly some things are more obscure than others, and things that didn't get the huge bump of interest and collectorism like Marvel and DC in the 70s and going into the 80s are more lost than other Marvel books, especially in this modern digital age. Now that we're into this modern digital age and this modern bookshelf collected edition era age, it's starting to feel like comic books that are not collected or digital in some way are kind of turning into moderately lost media, somewhat hard to locate media, because the only way you're ever going to get to read them is if you go and score a whole lot of them on eBay or spend a lot of time in the quarter bins in stores. And so talking about something like Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, which we know that I like, the first 4 issues have been printed ad nauseum, but if you want to read all of Team Youngblood all the way to the final issue, that gets much harder. And then if you want to read all the little one-shots that he put out from Awesome Comics in the late 90s, some of those had very limited print runs, and I have one that I will finally get to talk about if we do the Haul Around the World video that only had a 1500 issue imprint, print, which is a pretty small printing. And then the final thing that I was thinking about in terms of lost media, and then we'll try to pull this together somehow. I guess I didn't think all the way through to the end, did I? Is video games. So, you know, some of us still have functional PlayStation 2s. I discovered last week. Mine does not work. Some people still have functioning Super Nintendos. Mine's a little creaky. Some of us still have functional original Nintendos or Ataris. Mine don't work anymore. And so those games, until, again, they're not totally lost media because somewhere somebody has a functional Nintendo and people have the cartridges all over the place, but it's lost to you. So maybe we should call it inaccessible media. And so it's really exciting that when any of those games get picked up for Switch or for Steam, because then it's like, oh, this has become widely accessible media again. And I think that's actually the crux of what I've been thinking about, the idea that there's lost media, and then there's inaccessible media, and then there's accessible media. Because the thing that made me think about this is that Alien Books has started a Kickstarter last week, and they are the publisher that has currently got the license to print Valiant's Heroes, and it's a Kickstarter for the original Valiant Harbinger stuff from the 90s. And I had kind of given up on the idea that I was going to read any Valiant from the 90s. I have some of it in floppy, and there have been a series of oversized hardcovers for it, but I was still debating if I was going to get them or not when Valiant started kind of to go away, and I was like, well, I don't want to just get a couple of hardcovers and then not ever get to read the rest of it unless I went digging through eBay, because that's kind of right on the borderline of inaccessible media. And so Alien Books did one Kickstarter for Eternal Warrior, and that was last year. And you know me, I'm always looking for a trend. So one of something usually isn't enough to get me excited. But then this Harbinger one came out, and I was like, oh wow, there's somebody there who's really committed to taking this from inaccessible media to accessible media. And there's a lot of comic books I wish we could do that for, a lot of 90s Image, a lot of 90s Malibu, and that will probably never happen, although never say never. But it just really got me thinking about that in this modern age with Marvel and DC, there are very few Marvel and DC books that we can truly call inaccessible media, especially with the advent of things like Epic Collections, things like DC Finest. I mean, we are getting things in DC Finest, such as that forthcoming Wonder Woman Finest, that literally is collecting and reprinting something in color for the first time that has never been collected. So I've just been really reflecting that we are truly in a golden age right now of trying to make as many things accessible media as possible. Movies that were never on DVD are now on streaming. Comic books that have never been reprinted are now on digital and book. Video games are now in the Switch store. But the thing that we have to be mindful of is that it's so easy for these things to become inaccessible media again, unless we have some good way to archive them. If Marvel Unlimited, Disney was like, we're done with that, and they pulled it tomorrow, so we would lose accessibility of so many books. And I don't know that every single one of those individual issues is available for digital sale on Comixology. The same thing if, Nintendo pulled down the original Switch and all the games that were compatible with the original Switch. It sounds wild since we just got a Switch 2, but things have happened like that in digital marketplaces before, or all of our Switches die and Switch 2 can't play something. So I'm always thinking about the idea of how do we maintain accessibility? And in this modern era, the idea of maintaining accessibility is so much about digital things. It's about file formats. It's about running a computer that can run things. Albums that were mixed in the 90s on original 90s versions of Pro Tools, somebody has to either have an original working station that can still run that software, or hope that the current version of Pro Tools is backwards compatible to all of the things they use. But then what of all their digital effects that they used? Are all of them going to still load up 30 years later? And that's becoming a problem for people who are remastering some albums from the 90s that were file-based and then bounced to tape. The version that got bounced to tape is no different than remastering a Supreme song from the 1960s that there's only one stream of tape for, because they can't access the multi-tracked files, even though there's, 300 tracks, because that was all in Pro Tools and nobody can open it. And even if they did, the digital effects wouldn't work anymore. So that's the other half of thinking about this line between lost media, inaccessible media, and accessible media. I think that ultimately we're in a world where it feels like everything will continue to be accessible forever. But if you look at what's happening politically in the United States right now, where entire websites worth of studies and information are being pulled down, is that going to be accessible in the future? It's on archive.org, so long as archive.org is not sued into the ground by people who are trying to shut it down for mirroring some public domain works. So it's kind of like, we take for granted that we're in this accessible age right now. We've got all the video games, all the comic books, all the movies and TV shows that we never thought would ever be, collected. I Love Lucy is on Blu-ray. I never thought I would see the day. But, some of those things are ephemeral. What's going to happen when the last Blu-ray players die? What's going to happen when the CDC website removes all of its information that has the word woman or trans in it, even if trans has to just do with something being transparent? It's a wild world out there. So I don't really have a conclusion. I guess I didn't really think this through too far, but I was just thinking about that concept and how excited I am about this Valiant Kickstarter. I guess like go back it if you like 90s Valiant. The shipping is very reasonable even to New Zealand. And you know, it's just that reason that I get excited for all of these people who go back and reprint stuff from the 80s, from the 90s. You know, I've got somewhere right here my Aztec Ace collection by Doug Mensch. That is a 80s book that I leapt into the Kickstarter, and it was a very tragic Kickstarter. The original founder of it, as I've mentioned in the past, passed away before it could get fulfilled. But I leapt on that. There's a Mike Rood and Steve Barron Nexus Kickstarter right now. There's that Valiant Kickstarter, and all of that just makes me excited because it takes things out of the world of the inaccessible and to the accessible. And one cool thing about the Valiant Kickstarter is they're actually offering not a DRM locked digital version, but a PDF, which means that's probably pretty likely that that will never be truly inaccessible ever again. So that is my Moment of Krisis. And it's kind of a little bit influenced by some of the things that I know that I've hauled recently that I want to talk about. So let's see if you had any comments on that. And then we are going to get started. And here at this juncture, I think I'm going to put on my glasses, which, as we know, is my makeup reveal because I barely can see the text on the screen, so I don't know what I actually look like. I know the lips turned out a little bit dark today, but actually, I think things are going well. Okay. Let's see where we left off. Richard Fearing saying hello to everybody. And okay, let's talk about the announcement. So if you didn't go to near mint condition, please go give Omar the views. That lets Marvel know that everybody's looking for things to happen there. He announced 2 books that people strongly associate with me, apparently, based on the comments. Drink. One of them was the Dawn of X Krakoa Omnibus Volume 2. It seems like it's mapped correctly. It does have X-Men Fantastic Four in it, which was not in the anthology books, so they've proven they will depart from the anthology books. It does not have the Juggernaut 2020 miniseries in it, but some people smarter than I, including my friend Quinn Cognito, have pointed out that actually ran alongside X of Swords. So it could be that it would be in the next book. So we can't make any judgments yet. But one of the covers was of Kate Pryde with the Killshaw fists and the hair parted in the middle that's super curly. And there's these number of comments like Krisis on the cover of that book, which I did not understand because I don't usually think of myself as looking too much like Kate Pryde, but I will take that compliment. And perhaps when we do the solicits for that, I will cosplay that look and talk about that. But the other book, of course, was Uncanny X-Men by Kieran Gillen, which is something people strongly associate with me because I say all the time that Kieran Gillen is my favorite X-Men writer. And so I have some quibbles with the map of that, but I'm not going to get deep into that here. They're 2 very, very exciting books. I hope everybody else is excited about them. Hello to Keith. One Wheelchair X agreeing with me that he prefers the Magic covers not by J. Scott Campbell. Richard Fearing has seen the Superman movie twice this week. Oh, see, I didn't even know Quinn Cognito was in the chat. I was just saying nice things about them, not even knowing they were here. Skullzoid. Have I ever said hello to Skullzoid before? Somebody, you know, I'm crazy enough that I have considered going back through all the greetings in the past and making a spreadsheet of all the people I've said hello to. And I'm like, sometimes you're taking things too far. Almost never catch these live. Well, that would be why I don't recall if I've said hello yet. SUBX. Bird noises were on par with miming the other day. Oh, I did an epic mime routine on Near Mint Condition when we finally got to do this solicits last Friday. James the Medium Answer is here. Here's that link to One Wheelchair X's guessing the X-Men Age of Revelation books. Mink is saying, I was watching Jamming on Comics earlier this morning. I cannot believe both Jeff and Freddie killed Mike Carey's X-Men Legacy. We had one of the most fun Jamming on Comics we've ever done last week. It was, we played Kiss, Marry, Kill so that the YouTube algorithm would not punish us too hard rather than the word that you could replace Kiss with there. And we had a lot of fun, and I made them pick from current X-Men runs, and they both killed Mike Carey's X-Men Legacy. Edu Lorena is here from Argentina. I'm excited about the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Omni. That was another Omar announcement this weekend, was that a modern Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Omni, which I think it's actually a fun read, and I did hard work to make it seem relevant on the poll last year, and it got, I think, 2 votes. So then this year, I tinkered with the title a little bit. I gave it better directional text. I'm like, oh, somebody's got to be interested in this. And this year it got 1 vote. Out of almost 3,000 voters. There's one person who wasn't even in first place who voted for that book, but Marvel's putting it out next year. Now, to be fair, Marvel does not look at the full results from Omar the way that DC has said that they are going to do. Marvel only looks at the top 60, so they don't have the data on what nobody is interested in. But if I was and Omar's reasoning, which I think is fair, is like, nobody's got time for that. They don't need to be, I don't need to overwhelm them with information from our geek universe. But if I was working at Marvel, yes, I would absolutely want to know what books 0 people voted for. I'm sure the reason they're making it, maybe S.H.I.E.L.D.'s going to be in a lot of books next year. Maybe they're part of an event. It's also got a lot of stuff written by Mark Waid, who's really hot right now. It's also got stuff written by Mark Guggenheim, who's really a major force at Marvel right now. Marvel has many, many reasons that they print an omnibus other than that they think it's going to sell well, which is actually pretty crazy. Another person who's finished seeing Superman for the 3rd time. Wow, you people are wild. Patrick Borgeld is here. Logan Wayne wants to hear my thoughts on all the mapping of those. All right, I already talked about the Dawn of X Volume 2 book is fine. Maybe it should have Juggernaut in it, but honestly, that could very fairly be put in the next volume. The real question is if the next volume is going to be X of Swords and then trying to collect past it. X of Swords itself is like 35 issues. There's no way to get all the way from X of Swords all the way to the Hellfire Gala. You could maybe get through X of Swords and then have the King in Black tie-ins and the stuff right after X of Swords, or you could just reprint the X of Swords OHC. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to know about Juggernaut for like another 9 months until we see Volume 3 announced. The Gillen Omnibus, I'm sure there will be a longer video about me ranting at this at some point. I was hoping that it was going to start from either 526 or the Quarantine arc, because I just think they're more of a piece with the Gillen stuff than they are of the Fraction stuff. I was also hoping it was going to have all of Generation Hope in it. It doesn't have any of Generation Hope. I was also hoping it was going to have these side series next to Gillen's run, like Magneto Not a Hero, and also, what's the other one? X Club. So I'm a little disappointed, but that would have probably pushed it to 2 books. I really do think it should have Generation Hope in it. But maybe that leads us to having another book we've just started surmising could exist in the last 10 hours, which is like an X-Men Schism book, because Schism right now is only collected in the Wolverine Omnibus line, which is kind of weird. So maybe we could have an X-Men Schism book, or maybe we could have an X-Men like Road to AVX book that could have all those mini-series, including Wolverine and the X-Men Alpha and Omega, which was skipped by the Jason Aaron Wolverine and the X-Men Omni. Maybe you could have all of Generation Hope. Maybe you could have Schism and Regenesis. Maybe you could have Prelude to Schism by Paul Jenkins. And so maybe it could have the whole Namor series in it, which is only like 10 or 11 issues as well. So I do think that there is hope, and I think it maybe gives us something new to vote on next year, which I think is really exciting. Also, other recent mapping, they announced What If Into the Multiverse, the next book, which is going to wrap up, I think, that 1989 series, and they skipped an issue, a really good issue, number 84, because it happened to be written by Gerard Jones. That was part of what made me think about this whole lost media topic, because it's like Marvel and Disney and other companies too, kind of like intentionally trying to memory hole certain things to be like, and it's not because there's a rights issue, it's because, you know, there are problems with that creator, but there were a lot of other creators on that book too, and them being like, nope, it just doesn't exist. We're not going to put it into reprints because we don't want to see that creator's name in the credits. So black out their name. But I mean, maybe there's legal things that make that not possible. I don't know. But that just really bugs me when we're trying to like memory hole things that clearly exist. That really, really bugs me. Okay, yeah, talking about Doctor Who without Lars, and we reached the limit of my knowledge pretty quickly. And Kane saying lost media is a travesty, and me being psychic, and predicting Reaper X was going to ask me about the censoring of the Gerard Jones issue. Yeah, I just don't think it's always going to exist. You cannot remove these people that now are people who have scandals noted, are worked on your comic books. You just can't. And I get the idea of maybe not putting out a collection of a whole series by one of these people because that feels like celebrating them when they've written one issue in a run. Now, granted, in What If, it's really easy to take out one issue because it's What If and there's no continuity between the issues. But we are seeing Marvel very carefully dance around Gerard Jones issues also in their collection of the 2099 universe, because he wrote all of Hulk 2099. So that is going to come up if they try to finish up collecting 2099. They're either going to have to skip them or include them at some point, and I think they're probably going to skip them based on what we've been seeing. The only time they've really collected his stuff with intention is part of the Operation Galactic Storm story, because it's just 1 or 2 issues in a much larger crossover, but this is just 1 issue in a What If book. I just don't get it. I do not believe in the idea of censoring creative works because there's a scandal noted about the creator. I just don't live in that world. I get that they don't want the bad press. I get that they don't want the idea of sending him a royalty, even if it's 5 cents, because he only wrote that 1 issue. I just don't care about that. I believe in preserving the thing. Okay, if anyone has any Golden Age Millie the Model issues, I will keep them safe for you. Yeah, that one is hard on the side of inaccessible media. Skullzoid saying, shout out to the PS3 SQ model that plays PSM1 and 2 games. Oh, I didn't even know that existed. But you know what, at this point, I pretty much bought every one of my PS2 games on Switch, except for Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which, like, come on, why can't we adapt that one? Here's James with a link to that Valiant Harbinger Classic Omnibus. People are talking about all their video game systems that don't work anymore. Cruel Angel saying, I feel the same way about TV shows too. Older series, obscure series, those that do not have many episodes, less of a chance to be released on a streaming service, much less get a physical media release. And plus, Cruel Angel, we have media services like HBO Max who just randomly take things off their service and put them back in the memory hole because they weren't generating enough profits and they don't want to deal with the accounting of the royalties for that small amount of views that it's getting. And it's easier to do like a tax write-off and just get rid of it, which is crazy. Reaper XC, does affordability come in the accessibility equation? Absolutely. I think if we were making a spectrum of all the way from lost to highly accessible, certainly somewhere between inaccessible and highly accessible, there's accessible but at a very high cost. And I often think about that with certain music, like when an artist will put out a box set that has like specific songs or demos on it or something, and it's not on streaming. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that the only way to hear that is if I spend this like $200 LP box set with CDs or whatever to hear this one song. And many times in my life in the 90s and 2000s, I absolutely bought $50, $60, $100 sets of music just for a couple of songs because I am rabid about music and being a music fan. Now in streaming and YouTube and stuff, usually you can find a digital copy somewhere, but yeah, there are absolutely pieces of music that I wish I could own by artists that I love, and that the accessibility equation of trying to get it physically, sometimes just because it's like a limited edition thing and I'd have to track somebody down in the United States who has it and then get them to ship it to New Zealand, which brings a whole other element to the idea of accessible media, which is all media accessible uniformly around the globe, right? Because some things might be very accessible to you in the United States and completely inaccessible to me in New Zealand. Andrew Lorena follows Marvel's new releases and sees what previously uncollected comes. Let me try that again. And see what previously uncollected comes, just to see what isn't lost media or lost material, that if it's not reprinted and digitized, it will be lost forever. Yes, absolutely. Lance's oldest game system is the Wii, which is not even that old. One Wheel Tracks would love to find his PS2 so he can play X-Men Legends again. Yeah, I love that game. Patrick Borgeld hates streaming services. I think they're a necessary evil. They certainly have opened my eyes to a lot more things, but I would give anything to give up all of my streaming services and go back to Netflix in the mail. Netflix in the mail was the promised land. That was as good as it gets. Reaper, if I got up on every comic published ever, what would I like to do? Well, I would still have to catch up with everyone that was still out every week. I mean, in my dream, I just have this year where I just sit down and read all of this in a row, but then I would have to give up all the other cool things that I do. And like, you know, time is running short ever so slowly. So I don't know. I mean, that's my dream. My dream is to have listened to every major album released since 1960 to present. I have most of them. Am I going to ever get to do that? I don't know. It's about time management. So what would I do after? I think I would maybe just create more stuff. I think a lot of times I am moved to create, but I know that I'm not going to have the time to like record things or edit things the way that I want and then distribute them as far as they want to go. And so it's just so much effort that's going to take away from so much consumption. And I love consumption too. And so I actually wind up putting away, like, you know, I have 400 songs. There could be 40 albums of Krisis, but that's a lot of effort to get that all recorded and get it all mixed and distributed and onto platforms and sold and stuff. And so sometimes I just default to listening to 40 new albums by other people instead. So yeah. Okay. Lance McNair talking about Roger Corman's Fantastic Four, which is, we could call that inaccessible media because there are ways to see bootleg copies, but yeah, like officially it's more towards the lost thing. Skullzoid mix playing the X-Men game on Sega Genesis. That was a good one. Just want to say hello to 5th of Jack Gaming. Totally agree. I have Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1, 2, and 3 downloaded for my PlayStation. They took the game series off the market out of the blue. That is such a bummer. Yeah, so Stoops, I think for 2 more days, Switch is having a sale on every Final Fantasy up to 13. I've only ever played 1, 2, 4, 7, and 12 in the past. So I got all of them, but my attention span and free time is so short that I'm basically playing like 80 minutes of each one to be like, oh, that's what that menu looks like. And then I moved on. So I've played now 80 minutes of 1 through 4. I know 4 like the back of my hand, and 7, but they're all on my Switch now. I have to get more memory because I quickly exceeded the existing memory of my Switch. Hello to Axel Plate. And I think we're about to start. Superjob has never read that Gillen run on X-Men. I'll see myself out. I mean, it was a weird time because it kind of was wedged in between Second Coming and AVX, which was only like a 18-month, not even period, but it also was some of the best X-Men ever, in my opinion. I just think Gillen gets those characters so well. Yarna Paul's asking one of the major existential questions of my world. Are we not alive to be put into a spreadsheet? AS saying hi. Bunkmaster saying Mark Wade's so hot right now. And Anna May saying hello. Oh my gosh, people are still talking. All right, well, so I don't care. This was a short week. I only read 46 comics. I know you're here to see me talk about the comics. We're going to get there. Edu Lorena, Wonder Man is completely written by Gerard Jones. It sucks that there's a whole continuity because of that hole in continuity. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole omnibus. We could have epic Wonder Man epic collections, but Marvel, I definitely think they would not want to do a whole epic collection of Gerard Jones and with his name as the only author name on it. It's unavoidable. I mean, I guess they could pull in Alan Moore and like do the original author. Like maybe they could reach out to Jones and be like, look, we want your material to be in print. I'm sure you would like your material to be seen, but we're not putting, there's no way we're putting your name on it. So can we credit you as the original author? Would you consent to that? Maybe that would be a way, but then it would be like, then news outlets would be like, Marvel has had contact with Gerard Jones. I don't want to get into my whole Gerard Jones things, but I've many layered opinions on that. Of course, someone comes into work and I have to cook for them when a moment of crisis is happening. Miss the whole thing. Oh no! Okay. Thinks my lip game is great. You know, I've been trying a darker lip liner so you can see underneath it's quite dark, but I think I put too much of the dark liner onto the actual lips, so the ombre was really hard to do. Because it had like a dark undercoat, so I made up for that with a lot of lip gloss. But I'm learning. I mean, I'm learning. I'm definitely, things have changed since like 2 weeks ago. And you know what? I forgot to take a picture. I like to take a picture early in the stream before it gets all cracked from making vacuum noises and bird calls, because then I can go back and reference what it looked like. So here we go. I'm just going to take a picture right now, and then we are going to start talking about the comic books. Okay. Yeah, I did a lot of different stuff today. Like, you know, I would love to be a media influencer that includes being a makeup influencer. So there we go. Now we have my picture. Okay. I see some more amazing, very interesting comments, but we're going to put a pin in that and I will come back to them in the middle of the show. So here we go into the actual books of the show. And the thing that you always need to remember is that I'm going to take a break in the middle. Today, it will be after the letter H. And until the letter H, the only comments I'm probably going to respond to and show on stream are comments that are about the actual book, or comments that are about maybe like one book back, just so that on rewatch it makes sense to people as they're watching it and jumping around if I remember to put the chapter marks in. So if you're having longer conversations, if you're asking me about the nature of life, the universe, and everything, I will talk about those comments after I get to the letter H. Okay, so let's begin, shall we? Okay, and I got my timer. Do I have my credits? I have my credits. Okay. We start with 2000 AD, which of course I just put on here to appreciate the covers. It really does have some of the best covers in comics, but I do not read it anymore. I just adore the covers. I mean, look at this thing. It's like a vampire fish thing with giant wings and machine guns. I often want to read 2000 AD when I see the covers. So the first book up this week is Absolute Batman. Now, this is by Scott Snyder, Nick Dragotta, who's back as the regular artist, Frank Martin on colors, and Clayton Cowles on letters. And if you have recalled the story so far, I actually dropped this book. But then, sorry, this little twist in my hair is driving me crazy, ADHD. Okay, I dropped this book, and then I read the last 2 issues because that had art by Marcos Martin, and I was really interested in it. So I kind of just like started reading this without even fully thinking about it, and I was like, oh, now I'm reading Absolute Batman. Well, guess what? This was one of my favorite issues of the series. I thought it was really, really great. And I think that's because ultimately I just do not care that much about origin retreads. And now that that's behind us and we've got this big, weird looking version of Bane, like, am I really interested in the reimagination of Bane? No, that holds no interest to me. Am I interested in this amazing panel layout? Am I interested in the version of this Bruce Wayne who is like, he's got a crew, he's got friends. And in this issue, he introduces Alfred Pennyworth, the secret agent that he's met, to his friends too. And so it's like gone beyond just redefining his origin to be like a totally different version of a Batman story. We've never seen Batman with a council of friends that he actually relies on and confides in before. And so there, I think Scott Snyder has finally, after 8 issues, found a way to really create and flex something that to me feels truly different than the Batman that I can get in mainstream Batman. So actually, I was really into this, and there's just really cool, I mean, this page is amazing. There's really cool stuff about him breaking into this Arkham site. It's not Arkham, it's Arkham, and that this is like a black site, and there's some all over the world, and like, why is there one in Gotham, and it's got a whole city hidden underneath it? Like, this is what I want from the Absolute books. Give me a whole alternate history. Don't just give me an origin. Show me that we are on a completely different world with different rules. And so I actually am like kind of hype about this book now. Superman Action Comics. This is the first in Mark Waid's new run. I knew nothing about it other than it was drawn by Skylar Partridge, who drew that Reversal OGM, which I loved so much. And it's colored from Ivan Placentia and lettered by Steve Wands. What I discovered as I started reading this is that this is actually all in flashback. This is Mark Waid re-establishing Superboy as being the introduction of Superman to the world. Now, that is kind of what marks the beginning of the move towards Silver Age continuity for Superman. Even though Superboy was introduced in 1949, elements that had to do with Superboy were kind of like cohesively made part of Superman's history later in the 1950s, and so that became the Silver Age version of Superman, was a Superman that had a Superboy. But that has been variously on and off the table since Krisis, because it kind of like changes the history of superheroes to have the Superboy. This was a Superboy origin. I mean, we see his first appearance ever as Superboy here. Part of it I really liked because it is tied to Metropolis. It shows the Kents as younger parents that really have like thought through what it means to have this kid who has this big secret, and what it means to gradually let him be himself in the eyes of the world, but not all at once, which I think was really resonant. I didn't super love the way that Ivan Placentia was coloring Skylar Partridge. I think Skylar Partridge's art looked so much better in Reversal with a slightly flatter color look, and this color look is still relatively flat. I mean, just because this guy has shiny stuff on his helmet doesn't mean that it's not a flat color look, but it was okay. I mean, this felt very one-offy to me, like, okay, here's how Superboy first appeared. So I'm just not sure where this could go from here. Like, okay, so Superboy exists. Terrific, we love it. I'm kind of just curious to know, like, okay, well then, what are we going to do for the rest of this Mark Waid run? Or is it going to be more Superboy stories? What more is there to learn? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. This is Amazing Spider-Man Giant Size, which I am saying is part of the volume Amazing Spider-Man. It's kind of unclear because the digital copy doesn't have the actual indicia if it is Giant Size The Amazing Spider-Man or The Amazing Spider-Man Giant Size. So anyway, the other thing is the first story is by Kevin Smith and Giuseppe Camuncoli, and it is not credited with a credit page anywhere in the book, which is sort of unusual. So there are multiple stories in this. Let's tackle it. I don't really understand why this book existed. Of course, I always like Camuncoli drawing Spider-Man, but this whole first issue, or the first story by Kevin Smith, is pretty much all about Spider-Man's pants ripping, and then him swinging all around town to try to get his pants repaired, and it's a lot of talk about his supple bottom and pole and dingleberries, which is interesting. I do like when people objectify Spider-Man. That makes me laugh, but it was a very strange main focus for a story. I guess the whole point was to show the origin of him getting this unstable molecule suit from Reed. But Kevin Smith, I mean, you're much older than me, Kevin Smith. Do we really need to be talking about Spider-Man's butt for a whole issue? Like, I just think that there were funnier ways to do that. Then the second story is by Al Ewing with Mark Buckingham on art and Rachel Rosenberg coloring with Joe Caramagna as the letterer. This is kind of just showing Spider-Man kind of falling through time and reality to try to solve a little hole in reality with that boring guy from that boring comic book Gods. It's one of those Al Ewing stories that he always does, where it's like, we're tinkering with what it means to look at the beginnings of the Marvel Universe. But Al Ewing has been doing these tinkerings for like a decade now, and they're so disparate and they're so spread out and they don't connect to each other that I just don't care anymore. Like, okay, so here he's establishing that it was the construction of the original Human Torch that kicked off the Marvel Universe. Okay, well, where does that fit in with the thing he did with the guy in Marvel Comics 1000? And where does that fit in with his stuff about from the next universe from Immortal Hulk and the previous universe from his Lifebringer Galactus and Ultimates? It's just like, I need somebody to just sit down and compile all the shit that Al Ewing has said about how the Marvel Universe got created or destroyed, because it's just all over the place, and it's fun when he does it, but I'm starting to like roll my eyes when it shows up. Then the final story was a Chip Zdarsky story with Cafu as the artist, colored by David Curiel. Wow! Also letters from Kuramanga. This was pretty good. I mean, it looked spectacular, but I am such an easy mark for Cafu's art. But it was just the creation of a new hero who was not intentionally making himself a hero, and Spider-Man has to kind of talk him through this knife's edge he's on of being a hero or villain. This was a pretty good story. So and then we had an unfortunate, that's more that beautiful Cafu art with amazing colors. And then unfortunately, we had a couple of page story that brought this terrible Kid Venom from a different universe in the 900s Japan into the present day. I was like, gosh darn it, I was really hoping to ignore that. It's by Mitsuyasu Sakai and Gerardo Sandoval with colors from Israel Silva. None of which I enjoyed. So I can't say that this was worth reading unless you really want to read a whole story about Spider-Man's butt, or unless you really, really, really like when Al Ewing plays with the definitions of the Marvel Universe. I just did not understand why it existed. James Abel saying, Kevin Smith humor didn't work. Chip Zdarsky's story was okay. Al Ewing tried but was missing. And Kamen Coley begins a new crossover. Oh, I didn't know that's what he was doing. But sure. It's weird that it is not part of the Miss Marvel Giant Size storyline that's in Giant Size Age of Apocalypse. But they did put Miss Marvel on the cover because Miss Marvel is part of the Al Ewing story where he plucks people from different parts of time to fix the thing, but it's not officially part of the Miss Marvel thing. This is more part of that string of giant size issues that we've been, were they last year? I totally forgot now. I think they were mostly last year. They were getting all those individual giant sizes. So yeah, it's just like totally randomly out of the blue. Okay, we talked about that way longer than I cared to talk about it. Let's move on to Aquaman. This is Aquaman issue 6. It is by Jeremy Adams, Michael Schulfer as an artist rather than Tim, who's been the artist so far, and Rex Locust still on colors, Dave Sharp still on letters. This is probably my favorite issue of this so far. Part of it is I just like Michael Shelfer's art more than Tim's art. It just works way better for me. And the colors popped more. It seemed less busy. People had actual noses. I just really had fun. And the other thing is that at this point, now that Aquaman has like assembled his heist team that are in this underwater blue world with me, I just feel like it allowed him to be Aquaman more. Like all the issues so far is he gets lost, he has chains on him, he breaks out of the chains, he's angry. This is the first issue where I felt like he actually had agency and he was finally felt kingly again, regal again, like he was making decisions, like he was in control of this quest that he's trying to go on for Mara. So I just think out of wandering in the desert or in the deep with Jeremy Adams for 5 issues now, I feel like in the 6th issue, I finally feel like I'm reading an Aquaman comic book, and as is our way, James Abel completely disagrees with me, saying it is the weakest issue so far of this series. Which is why we will continue to work on our relationship and counseling, but great colors from Rex Locust here. Now we come to Marvel's digital books. The first is Astonishing Avengers. I don't know if I'm going to take a whole minute on this. This is by Steve Orlando with art from Francisco Argentiano, colors from Carlos Lopez, and letters from VC's Travis Lanham. This continues this idea that Spectrum, She-Hulk, and Wasp are undercover as wrestlers to figure out about these wrestlers that are being kidnapped from Sharon Ventura, the Ms. Things wrestling league. And so the last issue set it all up with them getting their cool wrestling outfits. This issue just has them wrestling. And I know a fair amount about wrestling. I used to be a wrestling fan. I just got nothing from this issue. Nothing. I got nothing. And I guess it was probably funny for people who know wrestling and they're like, oh, it's so cool to watch them do these moves and like decide like who's going to take the fall or whatever. But it just felt like a lot of filler to me. And look, I appreciate that Steve Orlando clearly knows his wrestling well. And this was for an audience other than me. And I get that there's only 1/4 or 1/6 of what would be a whole issue. But I just kind of like rolled my eyes and found it kind of dull, which is my overall reaction to this incredibly terrible Astonishing Spider-Man series, which I refuse to continue to talk about. Next we come to Avengers Academy. Now, this is not the actual Avengers Academy digital issue that was out on June 11th. This was a physical collection of this amazing book that you could get. It had all 6 of the first digital issues all under one cover. It was a very charming introduction to the series, and I think it only got better from there. I do think this is one of Marvel's best books. Actually, I think it's currently number 23 for me, so it wasn't quite in that massive top 20 that I did, but it is still pretty up there, and I'm liking it month in and month out, which includes the actual issue that was out on June 11th, which was issue 46 of Avengers Academy, Marvel's Voices Infinite comic. And so this issue is a one-off issue, so it's a great place to just dip in and try it. And the whole idea of this issue is that this character on the cover, the Kid Jack-o'-lantern character, is just randomly at the academy, and he is wreaking havoc. I love this page because, again, I love when people objectify Spider-Man. Spider-Man says, "Jack, I graded your essay on superhero team-ups. Oh, sick. It seems to just be a crude fanfic about me and Human Torch." Yeah, that's correct. With illustrative diagrams? That's right. Please see me after class. I objectify Spider-Man. I love it every single time. I love it. And so it's just about this kid totally wreaking havoc throughout the school. And then finally we realize that he is there for a very specific reason that briefly altered their reality, but it's really, really funny. And the other thing that comes out is that he was like the first kiss and first boyfriend of one of the other gay characters. And he's like, I'm no way, guy. I'm super straight. You're probably remembering a different incredibly hot dude with thick as hell body and a tender lovemaking aftermatter. I mac on so many ladies. I love the way they have boob, which I can't believe that Anthony Oliveira is getting away with script moments like this, and it's just so funny. And it's not just funny because it's gay, it's funny because the whole book was funny. Like, the humor actually hit, and when all of the humor works, you can sneak in some like bordering on cringe queer humor, because the whole book has that delightful line of bordering on cringe humor. This is written by Anthony Oliveira, who I adore. Art from Pablo Collar, color from KJ Diaz, letters from Ariana Maher. Now we come to Batman and Robin, and if you recall, last month I really liked the issue of Batman and Robin by Philip Kennedy Johnson. This month, not so much, and here's why. This is a very middle chapter syndrome, and I want you to start getting used to that so I don't have to redefine it every time, but it means it's just an issue where there's no actual plot to recap, because it's just moving pieces. People go to a place, people discover a thing, which sounds like a nice compressed plot, but it just doesn't really feel like anything's revelatory or memorable. I have a lot of time telling you what happened here. The woman, Latrell, who's the investigator, realizes that she knew Batman out of costume back in London, but she didn't know it was Bruce Wayne, but she's clearly seen his face, so it's crazy she hasn't put that together. They have to go and meet with Jason Bluggs. They need the demon Intrigan because there's rhyming involved in the supernatural villain, so that's a thing that happens for a while. And then there's a bunch of kids that live under Gotham that run around and do some stuff. It just didn't really feel like anything was happening here. And once again, I think this arc is too long. I think we're on the like 7th or 8th issue at this arc. It's too long. It's too long for this to be one arc. Philip Kennedy Johnson needs to figure out how to tell slightly more discrete stories that just connect to each other instead of just go on and on. And I just think he writes kids not great here, which is wild because he actually wrote kids really well on Superman and Action Comics. And I was like, oh, Philip Kennedy Johnson maybe just always needs to write kids as long as they're not being physically abused on panel. But no, his kids here just don't work for me. I just wish he would just write a detective story. He's actually capable of writing a really cool detective story. Okay, Batman Dark Patterns. Oh my goodness. This issue, number 7, starts a new arc. And since it's starting this new arc, Pareidolia, which is about seeing patterns where there aren't patterns, this is the first story that extends the series, because originally it was supposed to just be 6 issues. And that's so interesting because this ties together the happenings of the first 2 arcs. The first 2 arcs originally were kind of told very separately, barely even referring to each other, but now it's actually coming around to the pattern of the title, with Dan Waters writing and saying, Batman's like, am I seeing patterns in the way that this city is trying to reject me as Batman, as if I am some infection that is trying to burn out in a fever, or am I just delusional, or is this just Gotham? Of course, we have amazing art from Aidan Sherman, colored by Trona Farrell, and lettered from Frank Sedovic. And so this, once again, like the previous arc, shows Bruce Wayne, who is really trying to fight against Gotham itself to solve this particular murder. But I want to read this page because the writing is so good. You've always suffered fires. A dense population, cold nights, a high crime rate will do that. But these last months, it feels like your skies have plumed with smoke every night. It was a fire that created the Wound Man. It was a fire that ended the siege of Blood and Towers. It's beginning to feel like you're trying to burn me out. Like you see the Batman as a fever, one that might be exterminated by raising your temperature. Love it. Love that concept. And then the next page he says, and I've had enough. Love that writing. So now he finds this new burn victim that connects to a mob hit in the past, and he's got to go into this weird neighborhood that's kind of like the Narrows from the Batman Begins movie to pursue it, which just leads to so many wild page layouts by Hayden Sherman. So much amazing coloring from Chona Farrell. And really foreboding and mysterious. I mean, it's the best Batman book on the stands. It is the best superhero book on the stands. What else can I say? I really hope you're reading it by now because we're all talking about it constantly. Cruel Angel says, Dark Patterns, lessons on pareidolia, astrophysics, forensics, and the Red Hood gang. Oh yeah, that was part of it too. Great moments when Bat looks up and asks everyone in hiding to help him find the gang. And of course, no takers. James Abel saying, Batman Dark Patterns, Batman as Sherlock Holmes. Yes, this is what I wanted, another amazing issue. Yeah, this is going to go down as one of the all-time great Batman series. I mean, even if he totally drops the ball and messes up the next 5 issues, the first 7 issues are so good that I don't even know that would matter. Okay, this is a brand new comic, and I got hung up on reading this because it just was paced strangely, and this delayed me from actually doing this as a catch-up book, or a catch-up stream last week. It's written by Karina Becco, art by Andrea Sorrentino, who I don't always love, colors from Dave Stewart, letters by Richard Starkings and Tyler Smith. However, when I finally got through it, I do think I like it. So it's this book. I love vampires. I love lady vampires. And I love vampires that are not just doing like a big vampires taking over the earth thing. And so this book is about this singular vampire who is trying to cross a body of water. So she gets on a ship. She winds up eating all the sailors, and then she like pieces out of there. And so, so she goes to this island, and there's nowhere for her to hide or be out of the sun. So she just like takes a beach cabana, and this kid who like runs the cabana is like, you can't just be in there all day, you know? And so she makes him her thrall, and he reveals that he's like, oh, are you one of the vampires from this island? I've never met you before. And she's like, met me before? Vampires on this island? What are you talking about? So now she's on a quest to find out if there are really other vampires on the island. I love that. And the whole thing is narrated by her, and she's really snarky, and she's like not telling us everything. So the whole thing is like her being like, oh, thralls. I really prefer to have thralls that are more capable than this. And like, that to me is my weak spot. Like a vampire who's kind of annoyed with humans rather than just wanting to eat all of them. I love that. Cruel Angel is saying blood type Ada the snarky vampire is back. Back? What is she from? Is she from that Hello Darkness anthology? Because I think I saw something of her there, but has she ever had a series before? I want to read it. Oh, that was the other thing. Throughout the story, not only is she commenting on the story in a snarky way, but there's a host of the comic book who is like hosting the story and commenting on her, which is also a thing that we saw recently in Marvel Rivals by Paul Eller. I also love that. So yeah, I just had a lot of fun, and it was weird because I didn't know what it was going to be, and that made me hesitant, and the first couple pages were kind of slow, but as I got into it, I liked it more and more, so now I'm kind of looking forward to reading more. Oh, she spun out of that EC Comics anthology series, Epitaphs from the Abyss, which I partly do not read, so I do not have to say epitaphs a lot on the stream. Okay, let's move on to Blue Palo Verde. I cannot decide what I think about this book from Mad Cave. It is written by Ray Fox, art by Ramonti, colors from Rafan Kartakasuma, and letters from Frank Sedovic. Again, this cover, by the way, is by the interior artist. Really, really cool, and that's what the interior looks like. This cover is by Marguerite Sauvage, not what the interior looks like. I really like the art in this, and I think that's what really kept me hooked. Sometimes I think the faces got a little like slack face, like not looking like anything, but I liked the paneling and I liked the storytelling in it. The line work was a little bit on the fine side for me. Sometimes I think really thin line work doesn't always come across really well in digital, but I liked the look of it. The story of it, it's about this woman who had been in jail for 15 years and she just got out of jail and she's trying to go back to meet with her father who's written her letters this whole time, but it just doesn't really give us a lot about her character. It just makes her like seem persistent, but we never learn why she was in jail or like if she felt like she made restitution or why she wants to find her father other than seeing her father. And that just never works for me as a story trope when there's somebody who's like got the whole story is that they just got out of jail. Like that's their whole deal. That just doesn't ever really work for me. Like I need to know who they are. But then this goes from just like a very boring, she just got out of jail story to this like crazy, what is that movie with all the Aryan people where they put flowers on somebody and then they're like the sacrifice or something? I always think of The Wicker Man, but I'm thinking of that newer one. What is it called? It's something that ends in an A, not Portlandia. Anyway, but it reminds me of that. So she kind of like stumbles into this town that's doing this crazy sacrifice thing. Here they're sacrificing like a bald Midsommar. Thank you, Max Appleman, he of the Infinite movies. And so I'm like, why are they sacrificing a bald eagle? But like the art is really cool and the colors are really cool, and I love the design of this crazy flower creature with the horns. It kind of reminds me of the TV show Yellow Jackets before it totally jumped the shark. So like I am kind of interested, even though I wasn't really hooked on the character. The art was so good, and the story just took such a crazy turn to be like, oh, this is actually about a small town that's a cult and sacrifices bald eagles. But now I'm like, wow, that's weird enough that I am interested in reading the second issue. And James felt the same way. Found myself very interested in this. Can't wait for the second issue. Okay. Conan the Effin Barbarian. Jim Zub was born to write this book. If you've ever been slightly curious in Conan, you need to pick this up. And this is a great place to start. This is a totally new arc. It didn't refer to the past stuff that happened too much. I never remember what issue to tell you it is because they don't put the issue number on the digital covers, which is just crazy to me. Great cover by Dan Panosian, though. It is, of course, written by Jim Zub. It is penciled by Fernando Daguino, who's amazing, colored by Diego Rodriguez, and lettered by Richard Starkings with Tyler Smith. Always really good letters in these books. Look, this is a little bit of a copy and a paste from previous things we've seen in this run, because it always feels like the story starts with Conan getting to a town with his adventuring party that he's kind of done with once they get to the town, and then something bad happens in the town. But you know what? If that's how every Conan story starts, fine, because I do think it's more interesting that they're all different in the body of the story. And in this one, everybody in his party is being drugged, but he is immediately on to that something weird is going on in this town. So he really thinks he gets the jump on them because didn't allow himself to be drugged. He's looking into it, and then he runs into this very sexy sorceress lady who puts the whammy on him. And so now the same fate that has befallen all the former members of his party is going to befall him as well. And I'm into it. I can't wait to see where it goes. And this artist, I mean, we've had a total bounty of amazing artists on this book, but Fernando Dagnino, wow. Again, somebody who can really maintain the classic look and feel of Conan from the 70s and 80s while not making it just feel dated. I'm totally blown away by his art. I love, this is probably too small for you to see on screen here, but the shading in this panel, he does this graduated shading up the arm of the sorceress and onto her face and from every direction actually, that are all focus lines that get finer and finer, so that the focus is just on her eyes, because the shading actually continues up over her lips and her cheek, so that we're just like really looking to her eyes. What a fun and interesting and masterful tactic to guide our eyes on the page. I love people who really know how to move our eyes around on the page. Good evening to you, Rami Darwish. Okay, let's continue. I didn't read Critical Role Vox Machina Origins because I barely had the attention span to get through Dimension 20, and I know they have a webtoon. I'm not going to read it, so I'm not going to get invested in Critical Role. I almost read Dark Regards, but then I remembered how much I hated the first issue of Dark Regards last month, so I did not read Dark Regards. I do think, as I talked about last month, this would hit for a certain person. I think it's a very, very funny, snarky book about this like kind of adult loser who doesn't really know what he's doing with his life, realizing that he could just tell everybody that he's the best black metal artist in the world, and that because all these artists are so weird and so obscure and have such crazy names and have album covers with goat blood on them or whatever, then nobody will ask any questions. I love that idea. It just was not that funny, and I didn't love the art that much, but that was for me. If that concept sounds really fun and up your alley, like if it was that same thing, but it was about like a drag queen, I might actually like it because it would just be like a little bit more up my alley. So if that sounds up your alley, I think you should check it out. I did try an issue of DC versus Vampires World War V a couple of months ago. It wasn't my thing, but the thing you should know about this Matt Rosenberg book is that it's DC versus Vampires versus Darkseid. And so it's vampires of DC heroes and the DC remaining heroes teaming up against Darkseid. And if that sounds cool to you, you should check it out. I don't read Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe one last time, but I am sure some people like it, which brings us to Deadpool Wolverine number 6. Now, I expressed some trepidation about this last time around because this Benjamin Percy series has been very much an art book for me by Joshua Cassara, who does do the cover art here, but he's no longer doing the interior art. He's off to other things, or at least taking a break after that 5-issue first arc, which means we got Robert Gill, who also did alternate with Cassara on Percy's X-Force, still colored by the fabulous color work here of Guru EFX and lettered by Joe Sabino. This, this has become a colors book, and this is one of the best pages. Of the art's good, it's fine. Robert Gill is good. I enjoy Robert Gill, but he's not Joshua Cassara. But the colors, I mean, Guru FX is working his ass off to continue the color story and to really make this book still pop on a different artist with not a completely similar style, and it really works for me. The thing that's wild about this book is that it feels like Percy's taking a really big swing to like redefine or broaden a lot of Strife's history, which is crazy to me because I mean it's hard for me to even remember like how much of Strife is the same Strife, because we see Strife from so many different times. Like, what happened to the Strife that was the Strife in Executioner's Song? Did he eventually die in Cable? I even for me, that's hard to keep track of. And it feels like Benjamin Percy is putting something really big and additive into that history, because he's basically saying that like S.H.I.E.L.D. was keeping tabs on Strife for many years and actually had him on ice. So like, what Strife from where is that? And again, the colors here, is this art as line work as strong as Cassara's art? No, it is not. You can especially see it in the smaller figures. Gill does better on bigger stuff. On the smaller stuff, it gets a little bit vaguer, but like Guru FX just still makes it pop. And so I think I still kind of liked it. I mean, as a story, there's barely anything there other than this hint that we're like reawakening this Strife story, but it remains a pretty good art book, and that's what it's been for me all along. Death of the Silver Surfer. This is by Greg Pak, and he has on art Sumit Kumar, who I love because he was the artist, if I'm not mistaken, of These Savage Shores. Colored here from Frank Darmada, who I always enjoy, and lettered by Joe Sabino. I think the problem with Silver Surfer is often that writers just don't know what to do with him. Like Dan Slott, part of what made that run so successful is Dan Slott just had a very specific idea. Like, we're going to do Silver Surfer as Doctor Who. He's going to have a companion. He's going to go around solving things on different planets and weird places, and it's going to be fun, right? So I think you always have to come to a modern Silver Surfer book with an idea, because just making him the surfer of the spaceways going from planet to planet and like having fights, it just doesn't work the way that it did in the 90s. And so Greg Pak has this idea here that Silver Surfer is on Earth. Why is he on Earth? It's not fully defined. That he's on Earth, and there's this new outcropping of what used to be S.H.I.E.L.D. or SWORD or whatever that's trying to get rid of all of the aliens that are extant on Earth, and they've set their sights in Silver Surfer, but he's a big get, and so they have to kind of like set a trap around him to lure him in so that they can actually do harm to him. So half of this is Silver Surfer just being on Earth and being benevolent and like trying to do good things on Earth, but also not try to interfere too much. But he's also seeing that there's like something in the grander scheme of things happening. But then it has people kind of attacking him and attacking other aliens and trying to make a show out of that to kind of like lure him in. Great page from Sumit Kumar here. I love Sumit Kumar's art to begin with, but this has major 90s Andy Kubert energy, which I really enjoy. I was fascinated by this. I love that Greg Pak is like left this mystery open in the middle, like why is Silver Surfer on Earth, and like what are the things we're seeing him do that don't directly tie to the story. And in issue number 1, I have some patience for that. I also love Sumit Kumar's art. I love Frank Darmada. I mean, just the creative pedigree of this is really high. This is not quite like a 4 out of 5 excellent for me, but it definitely made me very curious, and I'm definitely interested to see the next issue. So that's what you want from a number 1. James Abel saying, it seems like it was time for Silver Surfer to die, but not in this issue. Art was good, but not sure about the story. We don't have a good reason why he needs to die. Superdrop saying the cover is amazing, and there's also an awesome Tradmore variant nominee for best covers of the year. Yeah, this cover is really striking. It's by DK Ruan. So, and John Romita Jr. has said in a number of interviews that he really wants to do a Silver Surfer book to challenge himself, and he has a great story in mind. I think Romita Jr. would be really cool drawing Silver Surfer. Let's let it happen, Marvel. Okay. But yeah, Sumit Kumar, I will probably read anything with his name on it because I just really enjoy him. And I mean, this reminds me of an evolved, much more rendered version of Andy Kubert from like 1994, which is high praise for me. I love 1994 Andy Kubert. I don't read Dread Smosh versus Zombies. Is this from like Smosh, like the online comedy thing, Smosh? I don't know. I do read Eddie Brock Carnage, and this, you'll note, was not in my top 20. It plummeted down the charts because this issue was bad. It's written by Charles Soule with art from Juan Ramirez, colors from Matt Hollingsworth, and letters from Joe Sabino. It was bad. I don't know what to tell you. Look, there was fun stuff. Like, we have Carnage in his head just being absurd. He's got a top hat, a cane, he's got Carnage buttons on his shirt as we repeat that motif of him wrestling a giant version of Eddie Brock's head inside of Eddie Brock's mind, which I love. But outside of his head, this book just got so paint by numbers so fast. They're in the snow. They're flying in the snow. The people that Carnage kidnapped were hidden. They try to find them. They can't find them. They fight Misty Knight. He rips off Misty Knight's robot arm because that's the only thing that ever happens to Misty Knight in the comic. They find the people. The people are alive. Like, it was just so procedural, and so much of it was just people yelling at each other, people in the snow. It just didn't really feel like we got anywhere with Eddie Brock as a character, or with Carnage as a character, or with the story. And just to use Misty Knight, who I love Misty Knight, and to just have her arm get ripped off again, like it always is whenever she fights anybody. I just felt like Charles Soule, like, all of a sudden ran out of gas at the end of this arc. It was really, really, really disappointing. I think it was a really bad issue of this comic book. I didn't write Evie and the Hellthings, but I did sing it to the tune of Steven and the Stevens. Evie and the Hellthings, they're gonna make you scared. But I really would probably be into this, but I did not find it immediately available digitally. Okay, now you get to hear me start complaining about some things. So this is Exceptional X-Men by Evil. These pants are basically just a waistline at this point. They've ripped so much. Let's start again. Just these, one day you're going to see them because I'm going to stand up and forget that I'm wearing them. And I just wear them because it's the pants that I wear when I do get ready and makeup and everything. And they're comfortable. But I'm telling you, this one leg is ripped all the way up to all that's left is the waist on the one leg. Okay, let's try that again. Great cover here, which is the only nice thing I'll be saying about this issue. Okay, this is Exceptional X-Men number 10, written by Eve Ewing, art from Carmen Carnero, and the first time we've had a fill-in artist here, Frederica Manson, although it is kept to a dream or psychic sequence, so it kind of works. Colors from Nolan Woodard, who kept things very consistent, and letters by Travis Lanham. Unfortunately, this book is consistently bad. I'm done. I think I'm done. I might have to drop it, because Eve Ewing has no plan. And I like Eve Ewing a lot, but to spend this whole sequence, like half an issue of Emma in the psychic plane with Sinister, it just doesn't even say anything. Like, it kind of has a little bit of a beat about Emma, like how she's been changed for good by Kitty Pryde, but it's just like we've heard this plot beat already. And then again, there's so much lack of clarity anytime we get to accident. It's a bunch of people sitting around frowning at people. It doesn't feel like Eve Ewing has fully thought through their powers. It doesn't feel like she's fully thought through their personalities. It doesn't feel like she's fully thought through what Mr. Sinister is, or what his powers is, or what he's doing. This book is just not about anything. And we're now 10 issues in, and I think I've given it plenty of rope to hang itself with, and I think I've given it plenty of benefit of the doubt. And after 10 issues, it is still just the mildest possible New Mutants book that is just totally copying and pasting beats that we've already had about Emma and Kitty Pryde from Astonishing X-Men and many other comics that they've starred in together before, like Marauders. So I'm very happy to see art from Carmen Carnero, but this story didn't go anywhere. It was just bad. I don't know what else to say about it. And this, many people, me included, were holding up this as like one of the good books in the X-Men from the Ashes line. So if I'm saying that, I'm certainly the best looking book in the X-Men from the Ashes line. So if the best book in the X-Men, the best team book anyway, in the X-Men from the Ashes line is bad, what are we doing, Marvel? So I can't wait for this Age of Revelation to come and sweep all these books away. I hope every artist and every writer gets shuffled off of the book that they're on and goes on to something else, except for Jed McKegs. None of these people have a fucking plan of what to do with X-Men, and I like Eve Ewing a lot, but Dr. Ewing needs to get off this book and put it in the hands of somebody who has new and fresh ideas about the X-Men. And here I did think it was interesting to talk about color consistency. I'm pretty sure that this page, based on the facial expressions and the small stuff and the shading, this is not a Carmen Carnero page. This is a Frederica Mancine page coming out of the Psychic Vision. So this is the only like real world page she did. I'm almost positive this cannot be Carmen Carnero, but it was hard to tell because Nolan Woodard is such a good colorist that he just like really finished the line work. And I'm sure that Frederica Mancine is trying to draw on the style of Carmen Carnero a little bit more here than she was in the dream sequence, which looked a little bit more like Bickwith Everly. But I just thought it was really interesting, the power of colors to, and maybe this is a Carmen Carnero page, maybe I'm wrong, but it just really didn't look like her to me. So anyway, power of colors. I've been thinking about picking up this Falling in Love on the Path to Hell book again. This cover is so cool. Not just because it's like pink, but just because it's like a 70s movie poster with the radiating heart in the background and them all blue in the foreground. Just like, what a cool friggin' cover. you might really like this book, and I haven't had a chance to talk about it that much because it hasn't come out very regularly, and this is just issue number 8. It's about these two people who die in very different parts of the world, and they're in limbo. One of them was sort of a samurai woman, and one of them was a gunslinger in the Old West, and they meet and fall in love as they're trying to find their way out of limbo. So it's kind of like a action love story that's kind of overlaid on Dante's Inferno, which is one of my favorite stories. It was a little too brutal and cynical for me. It did have a sexual assault scene, very, very, very graphic, but not against a woman for a change. So hey, if you're a male writer and you do sexual assault against a man, good job, gold star for your sexual assault in the comic book. But just after 4 issues, I was kind of like, okay, I get what this vibe is. It's fine. I liked it, but I don't need to keep reading. But then I see a cover like this and I get interested again. And I love Dante's Inferno. So if anybody's reading it, let me know how the past 4 issues have been, and I might catch up on it for the next issue. Fantastic Four Into the Depths. I'm having this interesting problem with this Marvel Infinity comic where I do not retain anything that happens in it. I finish reading it and then my mind just goes blank. And I just think that that's a sign that Matt Groom, who I generally enjoy, is just writing like a very vague, get-her-done story here with Julian Shaw on art and colors from Israel Silva and letters from Joe Sabino. But I did really enjoy here that it does feel like Matt Groom has a sense of who the Fantastic Four are and how to use them. I don't really like when people write Fantastic Four stories and they just have them kind of all go like, blah, and use their powers, and there's no interplay between them or like silliness between them there, or the only thing that they play between them is like Thing and Human Torch fighting. Like, they're a family. Families are very nuanced. There's so many different beats to play with a family. So I love this idea that Thing is like tie a little ribbon around my wrist so we can split up and search, and the ribbon is Reed's finger, and he's like thumping it like it's a wash tub base, and Reed is like, please do not twang my finger. Like, that to me is funny. It's funny. And then also I really like the use of vertical scroll as they're going through this winding cave that like have Reed and Sue go this way, and then Thing and the person that's with them on this mission go the other way. Like, it was clever. What is the actual story about? Couldn't tell you, but it was cute, and it's free on Marvel Unlimited. I gave up on reading Far Down Below by Chris Condon because I thought it was incredibly boring, but it's about 2 little kids in a sort of Goonies-esque environment who are trying to go and have mischief, and they find a house that's haunted, and then they fall through the floor of the house, and they find that there is a world far down below their mining town in the middle of Pennsylvania. I did read Fire and Ice When Hell Freezes Over, and this one really surprised me because I hated it so much, and I liked it. If you all remember, last month I was crowing about how great and funny and charming it was. This is still by Joanne Starr on script, still by Stephen Byrne on art, still by Tamara Bonvillain on colors, with colors and Anna Mayer on letters, but it was fucking terrible. It was so bad. Again, maybe I just don't like Jason Blood and Etrigan, although I thought that I liked Etrigan in the past. I've enjoyed Etrigan, but I hated him in both of his books this month. But I think the thing is, there were no room for the jokes to land because we were with a character that Fire and Ice didn't bounce off of in a funny way. And so to remove them from all their cool supporting cast in Smallville, who are very funny, and then to have to keep cutting back to the supporting cast, and I didn't take a page of that, cutting back to the supporting cast in Smallville, divorced from Fire and Ice, it's like, it just sucks. Oh, here I go making vacuum noises. It sucked all of the charm out of the book, like all at once, all together, because it's just like, it gave away everything that was funny. Also, I don't like when authors pick a Trigan to use and then they're like, I don't have to talk in rhyme. That's just that I cannot talk in rhyme. That bugs me. If you're gonna use a Trigan, write his frigging rhymes. Don't try to play like a bait and switch where he's like, I don't need to rhyme. Then use some other devil, asshole. So yeah, Stephen Byrne continues to really deliver on art here. It's finely crafted, but it is boring as fuck. Unfortunately, I cannot recommend this series. It was a brief bright spot in issues 1 and 2, but I think that this is going to wind up just as bad and boring as the first series did, which I really, really didn't like. And I thought it was the fault of the art, but who knows? Maybe it was the fault of the script. Now we come to the final issue of Frankenstein New World, which is an extension of the world that was previously inhabited by Hellboy and the BPRD. This is by... Is this really the next book? Oh, I didn't get credits from this book. Oh no. Well, they're on the cover. Mike Mignola, Christopher Golden, Thomas Sinowski, Peter Berting on art, and Michelle Madsen. Oh, here's the credits. Didn't put it in my credits file. So what's really interesting here is that they resolve this conflict that they've been having with these weird fish people and their sirens in the sea, but the main siren is being inhabited with the ghost of a prior siren who's actually dead, who is a thing that tangled with Hellboy at some point. All sounds vaguely interesting. There is no coherence in this. Like, they're underwater, and then they have a vision, and then the siren feels sad, and then they tell the siren that she doesn't have to stay in this world, and so then she decides to give up her body, and then the end. Not only was that there's no interesting plot here, not only did I find it really hard to figure out what was happening in a lot of the art here, but it just didn't feel like they had an ending in mind. And it also feels like because this they're playing this Hellboy game where everything is going to be its own little mini series and there's no like long ongoing Frankenstein series. As somebody coming to this newly and who really liked the other 3 issues, I kind of ended this with this sad where like, okay, well, it wasn't good, it wasn't compelling, it didn't really tell me anything interesting about these characters, and it didn't really tell me where this is going or why you should care about this new world. There's just this vague hint that Frankenstein has to bring this girl somewhere, so why am I reading your comic book? Like, it just really feels like they're only writing this for people who have been reading Hellboy since whenever, 1993 or 1994, and it's been 30 years. And like, I know that Hellboy does bring in new readers, sometimes just on the pure mystique of Hellboy, but here's somebody, it is me, who like really wants to like this comic book, and if you just don't give us any information and then the story isn't interesting and then it ends in an uninteresting way, I'm probably not going to keep reading your shared universe, Mike Mignola. So there. I don't read Free Planet because I do not F with Aubrey Sitterson. I really want to read The Future Is by Fred Van Lent. I love Fred Van Lent, and as I talked about last month, this is like a comic book by a digital security company, but it's an actual ongoing comic book that it just like co-promotes their digital security products. I just think that's so cool, but it does not appear to have a digital version, so I have not found a way to read it. I didn't catch up on Geiger this week. I hated the other books too much. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Okay. Here is a continuation of the book that cracked the makeup right off my face when we talked about it a few weeks ago. It is Giant Size X-Men, second installment of Giant Size Dark Phoenix Saga. First, let's start with the positive. Rod Rice is an amazing artist. He used to watch our This Week in X shows, which is so cool. I really think he's got major Bill Sienkiewicz vibes, and he does as much as he possibly can with a script that is completely lacking in ideas here. This book should get Jackson Lanning and Colin Kelly banned from writing for Marvel and DC for a minimum waiting period of 2 years while they go away and think about what they have done. I think they're fine people. I don't think that they should be jobless. I'm not saying they should be destitute. Just please, God, stop writing Marvel comic books because your grasp on the Marvel universe is non-existent. All they seem to know is when things happen in continuity, but if it comes to a character or a voice or a motivation, everything's out the window at that point. So it drags Kamala Khan and Legion for some reason, but not actual Legion, just his multiple personalities, because David is in the Whiteout Room, into the Dark Phoenix Saga. And what is actually happening here in the Dark Phoenix Saga, you could not possibly explain. Dark Phoenix is happening, but Legion also wants the Phoenix, is sort of what I could boil it down to. But Jean's character makes no sense. Kamala's character makes no sense. The X-Men make no sense. And so basically all that happens is the Phoenix gets teased out of Jean so they can do a big monologue of like, I am Jean, but I'm not, but I'm the Phoenix, but they don't trust me. Who cares? We've already done this 100 times, written by writers that are 100 times better than these writers. And then all the X-Men go to the moon anyway, only for Jean to have to sacrifice herself to kill the Phoenix in the same way that she does in the original story. And there's this totally atonal beat of Kamala being like, I don't know that much about the X-Men, but I know you're a good person. She knows about the X-Men. She's written X-Men fanfics, you fucking morons. This is so bad. And the only thing that got me through was the art, but it was offensive. Offensive as an X-Men fan, offensive as a Kamala Khan fan, offensive as a Marvel fan, offensive as a person who reads words in the English language. These people need to be kept away from X-Men comic books. Then there was this backup, whatever, written by Steve Fox and Lucas Wernick. It's kind of just like Jean loves Scott. She narrates 8 pages of her loving Scott. It looked great. I love when colorists figure out what to do with this new black costume, which I really like. Here, the colorist is, I don't know, I guess Lucas Wernick coloring himself. There's no colorist credited. But yeah, look good. Okay. Golden Rage, which is also a term for what I felt in talking about that book, I dropped because it was boring. This brings us to Green Lantern Corps, another book that you've seen in my top 12 that curiously was not in my top 20 this week, and that's because this issue also sucked. It's written by Morgan Hampton and Jeremy Adams. It's art from Ken Marion and Serge Acuna, and colorists by a whole lot of colorists. I'm not reading all of their names right now. Letters by Dave Sharp. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. The thing is, it's got two artists doing two different arcs, and the Serge Arcuna stuff sometimes would look really good and polished, but then sometimes it would just go to this very like anime place, which you can kind of see in the bottom there with the slam sound effect into that kid's face. And it just was, I couldn't understand like what vibe were we doing? Were we doing like detailed Green Lantern Corps? Were we doing a manga sort of thing? Because we're in the psychic plane, and let me tell you, man, when we're in the psychic plane and it's not an X-Men book, you better do some heavy lifting to make it matter, because otherwise it's just there's a door, it's a dream, nothing matters. And then it's like, well, why did I read your comic book if nothing matters? And here, truly nothing mattered. I guess it's like, oh, there's a door in Boz's head now or something. I don't know. It was so stupid. Then the V. Ken Marion stuff, his art is just so crowded and the line work is so fine that to then put it in a super crowded environment like this place and to then color it so that there's no contrast, knocking the background back more to let us see what's in the foreground. I literally cannot see anything on this page. It's just too much of too much. It doesn't have any focal point. It's choreographed badly. It's paneled badly. Like, it's all drawn perfectly fine, but these are not just paintings that hang up. They're sequential storytelling that's supposed to draw your eye from panel to panel. And Marion, fine artist in terms of his figure work and his environments, but he doesn't lead the eye anywhere. And so this is just a mess to me. I took nothing away from this issue. It was tragically bad. Tragically bad. Now we come to Grim Tales of Terror, which is better than most of the X-Men comic books released this week. This series has been like the little series that could for me. And the reason I particularly like this issue, written by Chaz Pangburn, art from Alessandro Uzezo and Dario Carrasco, and colors from Juan Manuel Rodriguez, letters by Terrell Esposito, is that the many indie books and indie publishers would turn this into a whole miniseries, and it would drag and it would be boring. Like, I think of that series Kill Train that I hated, that James Abel kept reading because he likes bad comics sometimes. Kill Train has one issue that was as snappy as this. Could have worked. This basically is like, there's a killer who's copying the Zodiac killer. We get to see them do their first murder. It's quite shocking. Then we get to see a whole string of the murders being investigated by this detective. I love this art style. I couldn't decide who at Marvel it reminded me of, but it was just like really different from Zenescope, and I just really liked almost, I don't know who it reminded me of, almost Clayman a little bit, which is like a really different vibe for Zenescope. And then we got to the end and it resolved. And I was like, that's great. This was really satisfying. It was weird. It was creepy. It was funny. It was scary. It had 70s horror movie vibes, but set in the modern day. It had a very shocking twist at the end, and then another twist on top of that. And then we're out. And then we're out. Like, that's all I'm looking for in a horror anthology, right? 22 pages of story. Get in, get out. And so it was enjoyable. Again, I tell you, if you like these kind of books, like these serial killer books, like everything that what's his name, Kyle Starks is doing, all the serial killer type stuff that I always ride, the Murderer's Apprentice, which we did a couple weeks ago, none of them have enough story. It's like spreading too thin jam, or if you're in New Zealand or Australia, Marmite over toast. Like, there's just not enough story there, and everybody thinks everything's got to be a 4-issue miniseries. By anthologizing these stories into single issue stories, Grim Tales of Terror, month in and month out, works for me. I cannot explain it, but I've come to truly look forward to that book. However, I don't look forward to and don't read Hello Darkness, another horror anthology, because it's multiple stories per issue, and I just don't often like a lot of the creators, which brings us to Herbie's Infinity comic. This is written in art by Nathan Stockman. I don't need a minute here. It's adorable. The Fantastic Four get back from a mission, and they ask Herbie to go and get something with the car, but then he crashes the car by mistake. It's so cute. It's free on your Marvel. I should say, the thing I'm going to start saying is this is free with your Avengers Academy subscription, because this point, I mean, I use Marvel Unlimited for research all the time, but I view it as however much it is a month, an $8 a month subscription to read weekly issues of Avengers Academy, and also the 50,000 digital comic books in Marvel's catalog and all these other unlimited comics. So you're mostly paying to read Avengers Academy. Okay. I didn't read the All Good Girls Go to Heroin Heaven, which is, I think, a spin-off of some maybe FemForce, but it's classic stories of vintage 1940s heroines in full color. So is it reprinted stories or original stories? I don't know, because AC Comics doesn't do digital, but we know I'd read it. I was really looking forward to this final issue of Huge Detective, written by Adam Rose, with art from Magenta King and epilogue art by Daltz Dalton, which was really good, colors from Magenta and King and Minimone, and letters from DC Hopkins, because I really liked this story, and I just kept thinking about it over the months. Again, Titan never puts their issue numbers on their covers. This is 4 or 5. It was the last issue of the series. But I really liked this idea that like we discovered giants on Earth and the giants just want to be left alone, but they can't be. And so now they're trying to integrate into human culture. And one of them is a detective. And so he's working with this small size detective to solve a mystery of a murder that might involve another giant or might just involve a kid who thinks he's a giant. Like, that's great. I've been thinking about it nonstop for like the 3 or 4 months since they put out a last issue of this. I don't know why there was such a delay. So it disappointed me so much that this was a hot mess. It was so hot and so messy because it just didn't seem to have an idea of what story it wanted to tell at the end. And this is a common pitfall for indie comics that like have such a good setup. You can tell they've been thinking about that #1 and #2 for so long, and then they get to a last issue and it's a mess. There's a kid hallucinating, there's an evil scientist, there's a skeleton crashing to Earth from space, but then it crashes and it crashes on panel and then it just goes away. Like, there's no, after a whole issue of like, it's gonna crash, it's gonna ruin the world, it's gonna be like a meteor hitting Earth, then it just goes away. Then the lady, the detective has to get in the guy's mouth because she's going to survive in his mouth because he's going to hold his breath and go underwater, which is a cool thing, but then it just ends in like everybody shouting at each other. I just think that this was such a good idea. And it's one of these things where I do think that indie comics need editors. This does have a group editor and it does have an editor credited, but I don't know. It didn't feel like there was a lot of editing in the story because this final issue was just too many ideas all at once. And so I couldn't even tell what happened at the end. Like, I truly could not tell you what I was meant to feel got resolved here. Although the epilogue was great. And I love this art from Dalt Stolten. Show me more comics from Dalt Stolten. But unfortunately, because the ending got biffed so bad, I can't recommend this book, which bugs me because I've been thinking about it for months, only for it to arrive and be incoherent. Sorry, y'all. There's a bad stretch here in the middle. But on the positive side, that's it for the H's. We made it. I can't sing So Glad We Made It yet because we're not through the whole alphabet. So I'm going to scroll up a little bit and catch some of your things that I did not get to talk about during that and from slightly before that. And then we're going to continue with the rest of the alphabet. So let me get back to where Reaper asking what the XP thing is. YouTube has made these XP boards for like each individual show, but it's not like channel wide. I think it would be more interesting if it was like across the whole channel and you could continue accumulating XP. Like, I think that would be kind of cool. So it has to do who chats the most. It has no meaning. What's weird to me is I don't have a way to like look at it backstage to like give you credit. Like, I think it would be cool if I could be like, oh, like the #1 commenter this month will get a prize or something. But then that also kind of like incents people to just talk a lot for no reason, which I know you all wouldn't do, but it does incent that. So it's a strange gamification of something that people are just doing physically. Bunkmaster B, video games are particularly at risk of being lost, going back to our topic of our Moment of Krisis news story that the source code for the original Fallout was ordered to delete it by the owner of the Fallout IP. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, none of these things are permanent. And now that we're in a digital age, it's not as easy as cracking open a book. Like, even if the source code still existed, you still need something that can compile it. So that's why I think it's a good thing that websites exist now that like have ROMs of old games. Like, I know that's technically piracy, but like, we've got to preserve the playability of these games somehow. Geodevond, good morning to Krisis. I have a geode here, actually. I love geodes. I was like the kid who would like always get a geode from a science museum. So I have these beautiful bookends. I always want to get more, but they're so expensive. But I just love them, and it just brings me joy every time I see it here in the background. Okay, let's get that all reassembled. Okay. So good morning to you as well. What can we do to help the people standing up for their rights in the USA? Give money, just share posts. Yeah, Reapers in Australia, you know, I had my D&D this weekend with my US friends. And like, they're people with an amount of privilege. Like, they're not in immediate danger. But to hear about the disassembly of the things around them, like after hearing everything that happened with the tragedies in Texas with the flooding a couple weeks ago, and just hearing my friends be like, social services, which are just getting stripped away in their communities because they got defunded through all these cuts, and now those services aren't there anymore. It's just wild. I mean, it really is dystopia. We've arrived in dystopia. We've arrived in fascism, and there's not a ton you can do. I mean, give to the, I was going to say the ACLU, but I don't even think they're necessarily doing the work right now. You got to just, if you have money to give, you got to look for funds that actually physically help the people that are in trouble at that given time, that have been, accredited or reviewed in some way, and give to legal defense funds, especially for people who are immigrants and in the United States, because I wish I had better answers for you. I'm very, very lucky and privileged to be here in New Zealand, because the United States, it's not what it was. Okay, sorry, that was dark. don't we need Schism in a Gillen Omni? Yeah, it's gonna read. I mean, he kind of explains it in that Regenesis one shot, but it's gonna read real weird without Schism. But then again, Schism reads weird on its own. Like, it's not even a story. It's just something that was editorially mandated that Aaron did, or maybe he was always leading up to it and he's just a bad writer. I don't know. I mean, not anymore, but he was at the time. So yeah, it does kind of feel like it should be in there, but I get why they won't, and it's fine if they're not. If they're gonna save that for another omnibus that has all that other kind of oddsy endsy stuff and also connects to Generation Hope, and she's certainly a factor in Schism. So like maybe that's why. Superdrop has never read that Gillen run on X-Men. I think we talked about that. Careful of putting images on my knuckles. Someone will Photoshop it and send me to El Salvador. Oh, dark. That's dark. Okay. Let's continue. We talked about some of these comments already. Quincognito saying a lot of the same companies that are turning on DEI now did the performative removal of TV episodes during 2020, and none of those are coming back. Yeah. Like, and just like all of a sudden, like DEI is out, so that means we're gonna pull our one episode that was gonna have a trans character. Like those things are completely unrelated. Like, we can still have an episode with a trans character, even if you're not doing DEI at the corporate level. But it's this fear, this capitalist fear that if anybody puts a toe out of line, that they're going to get like beaten down and singled out, which is, I hate that even the support and the allyship for queer people and queer creators and queer characters was also born out of that fear of like, oh, we should court the rainbow capitalism or those people won't shop with us. But now that the fear shoe is on the other foot and the fear is going the other way and we're pulling all that content, like, it really bugs me. Why can't we just have people telling stories that kind of deserve to be heard and supporting people because it's right to support them and because they are talented? Vigilante, I did not see Superman, nor will I. I don't really like movies. I don't really like comic book movies, and I don't really like Superman. Well, I've grown to like Superman, but I like the original Richard Donner Superman. I'll see it eventually. It'll be on some streaming thing. It's like Thunderbolts, I think, just hit streaming on Disney Plus. Have I made time for that? No, because I have to read comics. Yeah, I'm just not a big movie person. Apparently Activision is trying to bring back Marvel Ultimate Alliance digitally. Please, 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 because I love that so much. Have I read the latest Spider-Gwen issue? No, I haven't read it yet. This is as far as I am. I never read past where I am for the show. So I am on June 11th. Anything that happened after June 11th, I do not know yet. Noah Horn saying the Gillen run is great. I love the lineup from the team putting all the big hitters together. Yeah, I love that Extinction team. Cedric is whispering in Ellen's ear that I have to play Final Fantasy IX. I've heard various people, I looked at a bunch of every Final Fantasy game ranked. To me, I just love 4 and 6 so much, more than 7. Playing 7 again last week, I was like, this was kind of boring. Like, I get that it was revolutionary at the time, but it's kind of just like a lot of walking from point to point on weird city maps that are not fun to walk through. And then also doing 100 side quests. Like, I don't actually, and the story was good, but the actual gameplay, I don't know. I think it was just thrilling at the time because it was the first PlayStation Final Fantasy. But so having said that, I went online to look at a bunch of Final Fantasy ranked because they're like, well, am I wrong? And I saw almost all of them either have 9 or 10 in the number 1 spot. So I'm very excited. And once I've played an hour of 8, then I can play an hour of 9 and an hour of 10. Okay. What's DC going to do with Gerard Jones' 3 years of Lantern comics? Well, I mean, some of the most critical Hal Jordan comics, DC is kind of considering unreprintable because they're all by Gerard Jones. They have done some collections of the past, but they're so shy about it now. I think eventually they will just slap it into a compendium and just be like, and get it out there. But I don't know if we're ever going to see that stuff in Omnibus. It's a shame. It's a fantastic run. It has amazing art. It has major story for Hal Jordan. It's so weird. But weirdly, because he turns evil and becomes Parallax at the end of it, it almost feels like it's intentionally lost. Like, the legend of Hal Jordan becoming Parallax will never be seen again, you know? Yeah. Noah Horn likes the Gillen Immortal better than the Gillen Uncanny, but both are some of the best titles of the past 20 years. Yeah, I mean, I love both. I love them both for very different reasons. Okay. Also, I missed the Batman comments as they were happening because I was just getting into my flow. James Abel saying, I found this as an improvement from the last issue. And also the famous Omar of very fine condition showed up. No, it was a different Omar, not our Omar. The character had the same name. Well, there's a lot of people named Omar. Or was he actually named Omar's full name? I don't think it was his full name. No Horn dropped Batman to Wait to Read and Trade, just not the biggest Snyder fan. I'm the same. That's why I originally dropped it, and then the art pulled me back in on the last 2 issues, and then this issue, I just go big, go mysterious, go spooky. It's different. Like, that's what Kelly Thompson is doing right in Wonder Woman. Kelly Thompson is like, let's swing for the fences every goddamn issue. Let's just make this the biggest Wonder Woman thing you've ever seen. Let's redefine everything, and like, that's what you should do in the Absolute Universe. It can't just be about like, oh, look, here's Killer Croc redefined. Oh, look, here's the Joker refall. Oh, 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 oh. No, like, it's got to go bigger, go go home, right? It's a whole world, and it's not just a 4-issue miniseries. It's a ongoing series, so you got to go huge. Quentin Cognito thought that issue was fantastic. Great, great, great. I forget if I got to say hello to Jaggernaut as we went. I'm just scrolling down for things that were not directly related to the books, although it seems like most of it was related to the books. Reaper XC has recently read all of Ewing's Avengers work, and I don't think I'm a fan of Al Ewing. I liked Hulk up to issue 25, which I did as well, and then the rest I pushed through. Yeah, I think Ewing, in a way, and I've said this before, is a victim of his own success. Like, it kind of feels like he's so good, but because Marvel's kind of given him carte blanche to do whatever he wants in books now, we've lost the sense of him doing things efficiently and doing things that have endings, and it just, everything's like a big, big thing now. And I think that often goes to the heads of writers, and even if they aren't big-headed about it, it works to their detriment, because we're not getting the small, contained, appreciable stories that we had from them to begin with that made us love them. And I really do think that has happened with him. But Stoops likes Tony Ho from US Avengers. It was goofy fun. Yeah, I love US Avengers. Okay. No Horn wants to catch up on Al Ewing's Venom to read Carnage, but not sure if it'll be my cup of tea. You don't have to read Venom to read Carnage. You don't. His Venom is like crazy space-time Venom. His Carnage is Eddie Brock with the Carnage symbiote down and dirty on the... You can literally go from the end of Donny Cates right to this Carnage series. I really don't think you'd be missing anything, honestly. Not anything. Okay. No Horn has a lot of great contributions today. Not much happens. Jed McKay's run is the only one I'm continuing with, which I was surprised when I thought Uncanny and Exceptional would have been my faves, but dropped Uncanny X-Men after X-Men Hunt. Yeah, McKay, I just think has a really good sense of his characters. I'm not particularly interested in that 3K story, which I talked about last week, but like I do think that he's writing the characters well, which is a huge, huge part of X-Men. And also, No Horn is reading Falling in Love. It's good, enjoying it so far. Dugan can write a competent comic, tempted by to try his book with Jay Lee. Oh, I love Jay Lee, so whatever that is, I will be checking that out. Quentin Cognito saying intriguing without rhymes is even worse than intriguing with bad rhymes, which itself is unacceptable. Yeah, it's one of those things that if you're going to do poetry in a comic book, I need you to be ready to do you're making that choice as the author to do poetry or to make things rhyme. So if you're making that choice as the author, you got to be ready, and I need you to hire a poet if you're not good at that yourself. Cruel Angel saying Marvel is racking up a decent sized list of people that should be kept away from X titles for the past year or two. Yeah, I would agree with that. Right, where is our Etrigan doing rap battles in the style of like the rap battles from Hamilton book, right? Who's gonna write that? Let's get Lin-Manuel to write an Etrigan book. Like, can we do that? I think that would be great. Always an instigators here. I don't know what's going on with Kelly and Lansing, if they're doing too much or what, but it didn't feel like they were really ever present. The same guys that did so well on Cap. That's the thing. I loved them on Cap so much. It felt dialed in. It felt compelling. It felt reverent of history, but still pushed things forward. They made great use of the artists with Carmen Carnero. After that, I was like defending them. And it was before I was caught up to things that were happening in 2023 and 2024. And people were like, Krisis, they're really bad now. I'm like, no, they're good. And then I was starting to read Outsiders, and I had such high hope for it. But everything they've written since then has just been disastrous. Maybe they're really good in Star Trek. I keep hearing that their Star Trek comics are really good. Lanning and Kelly just need to continue the Batman Beyond series. So I've never read that. Okay, now we're getting into closer to the present day. Geodes are so pretty. I love purple ones, since that is your favorite color. I'm somewhere in the purple to pink spectrum as well. Lance McNair agreeing on the fake corporate activism. Yeah, it's just so annoying. And Next Imaginaut, who even though the directed at Reaper, I would trust Next Imaginaut to articulate this much better than I could on the fly. Involve yourself in a local community as much as you can. Contribute to the national economic shutdown when it has to come to that. And protest when you can, and it's reasonably safe. I think that's all really good advice. Yarn Paul's asking, is Customs still keeping my package? No, it made it out of Customs at like 8 o'clock on Friday night. So no movement over the weekend, but it's in Auckland right now. So it probably is going to be here in the next day or two. And then I will do a haul around the world, because I have so much stuff that's like just off camera. I'm going to have to like make a list to remind myself of all the stuff that I've hauled, but I'm waiting for this thing to get here, and it will be worth it, I think. Stoops lives in Orlando, Florida, and certain parts of the state I truly stay away from because of all the crazy that's been going on. It seems to be only getting worse. Richard Bradley asked, do I think 2 a year is a good rate for the Age of Krakoa volumes? I'll take about to 20, 30, or 31 at that rate. I think that's probably sustainable. I think, I would love one every 6 months. That seems like it's a little too fast for Marvel. I think right? Or no, I guess the first one's coming out in October and the next one's April. So yeah, one every 6 months. And there's 11. Yeah, it might take us that long, honestly. I do think once they have a sense of how the sales hit, and if the sales persist to whatever the third one is, maybe they'll crank it up a little more. But we've very rarely seen them do more than 2 in a year of any omnibus line, because that's just a lot of weight for the market to bear, even for X-Men. So yeah, I guess you're right. It's going to take us until 2030 to get all of them. Gosh, that's a long time from now. I hadn't really thought through that. Stoop saying, I think because Orlando depends on tourism, so it's relatively tame here compared to everywhere else. But the crazy is getting closer. Ming 29 is their comics run where I think there's a perfect marriage of editorial mandate and creative from the writer. That's such an interesting idea. Well, I think anytime a character dies, there's a little bit of editorial mandate there. Like, yeah, a Brubaker or a Morrison pitches that, but like editorial's got to be a little bit on board from that. And then sometimes fantastic things can happen as a result. So like, I do think looking at Captain America dying in Brubaker's run, looking at Batman dying in Morrison's run, those are fantastic comics that certainly had editorial's support, although I don't know about mandate. Yeah, I love that question. I might have to think about that. I'm looking around to see if like anything jumps at me. I might have to think about that and come back in a future moment of crisis to talk about that, because it's such a good question. And I really have to think about it because it's hard to know. Here's the thing. We tend to only say editorial mandate when it feels like the creators are just don't even want to be there. They like don't even want to be on the job. Their ideas feel so tired. It's hard to say something's an editorial mandate when things are going well, right? Like, because then why would we say it's an editorial mandate? It's just great. So I think it's like a label we tend to pull out for runs that we don't love as much. My treatment of my pants is how I treat my underwear until they dissolve and I throw them out. My underwear secret, TMI, I don't know, is I find one kind of underwear that I like, and then I proceed to buy like 50 pairs of those underwear. So then if one starts to fall apart, they just get thrown out, and I just wear them until the supply dwindles too much, and then they get turned into rags or whatever, and then I get another 50 underwear. I'm the same way with socks. I'm a uniform person. Even these shirts, they're all the same shirt. They're all from the same place. They all are the same size. I have like 30 different shirts, but I wear them all on cycle, and because there's so many of them, I don't wear through any one of them. And that's how I do clothes. I really do not like variations. I'm not the kind of person who can go like thrift shopping or op shopping, as we call it here, because the constant variations between all the different clothes and like seeing how they fit differently and wear differently, and then one clothing I like wearing out and not having anymore, I can't, my neurodivergence cannot deal with that. So if I find one thing that I like, socks, underwear, jeans, or whatever, I need like 6 of it or 50 of it so that I can keep having it forever. I've been wearing the same jeans since like 2015, because when I found jeans that really worked for me, I just bought them in every color and assortment, so I would just have them all. Of course, that means I have to stay at a certain size to keep wearing those jeans, and that is proving to be challenging. As I get older, Tiger Eyes is here. Everybody blames Florida for crazy. However, most of the crazies are transplants in, and south of Orlando versus north of Orlando might as well be 2 different states. Always love to see Tiger Eyes here. One Wheelchair X catching up with the stream, exceptional. Still rooting for it, but I totally get we haven't gotten anywhere Carnero during the heavy lift when there is not that much plot. Keen saying we should have Lin-Manuel Miranda writing a Trigan. It would be a dream. Giant-sized Dark Phoenix saga. Rice again carrying all through the series is implying that Kamala has changed the past, but not enough to change anything important. It's confusing. I agree. Noah Horn saying, hey, Crisis, I know I love Lazarus. Have I read Old Guard? I do like Old Guard a lot. I do think the art sometimes is a little too plaintive and elemental for me. Also, the Netflix movie of Old Guard is really good. Like, I think it's maybe even better than the comic book. Really enjoyed it. I know there is a new one. Reaper XC, we're in speed round now. And after this one, I think I'm just going to continue with the comics, and we'll have to get the rest of your comments later. Crisis. Do you think reading all these issues month by month affects my enjoyment or lack thereof? When I came back to comics where I'm reading trade by trade, perhaps we'll even have a better payoff. When I did originally come back, I was reading by trade, but I also was binging so hard. And those binge times are fun because it's fun to read whole story arcs. That's why every couple of years I do take like 6 months off from this every month reading thing, just to like accumulate some things to binge. And that's why I'm not afraid right now in this show to drop things after I get a flavor for them and know that I'll come back. Like, I'll eventually binge all of that Uncanny X-Men. I'll originally binge all of Ultimate Black Panther, but I might enjoy them more on the binge than I'm enjoying them as individual issues, because I actually think I do well reading individual issues and kind of like remembering all the things that happen because I take such good notes. But I think something that happens is you start evaluating every issue singly, and when you're in a bad run, it just feels punishing to be like, another bad one, another bad one, another bad one. And it's easier to just binge through bad comics, I think, sometimes, than to read them one at a time and then have to have the anticipation of waiting for another bad comic the next month. But such is my lot, because I like doing the show, and I think if I I think there's a version of the world where I maybe was doing trade waiting, but because I need to write about the trades as soon as they're solicited for Crushing Crisis and be able to say, should you buy this? Should you read it? Where does it fit in continuity? It's just helpful to me, and it helps me keep the site updated when I read singles. So it actually makes a lot of other parts of my life easier when I'm reading in singles, which is strange, but true. Okay, we're going to continue. Oh, actually, you know what? There are only like 2 or 3 other comments, so I'm just going to get them. I worry they will not make it to the end of the Krakow Omnis. Well, I think that what they're doing intelligently is they're chunking them. So like, even if we just get to the end of Dawn of X and it doesn't keep going, okay, then hopefully they'll do Reign of X and get through Reign of X. And if we don't go past that, fine. Like, I think that's smart. You know what? Like, just give it little chunks at a time. At least finish the chunk that you're on. Logan Wayne is going to need me to remix Lisa Stanfield in the opening when I do my All Around the World. All around the world and I can't find my books now. Yeah, that's me. And one Wheelchair X is saying to water down Scott's mistakes from 40 years ago just for a backup story and say we've all moved on from didn't necessarily work. Kane saying I'm the same way. When I find a piece of clothing I love, I will buy it in every color. Jamie C47. Oh, this is a good point. Dark Phoenix Saga is a Jim Shooter mandate that Jean had to die, and Claremont originally Claremont was going to have her live, and you can actually see those pages in some of the collections of it, including the Marvel Masterworks, and actually Shooter mandated that, like, after killing all the broccoli people, it was too big a crime, and she had to die, and we got a classic out of that. Great call, Jamie C. Okay, back to the books. I hate Fairyland 41. I don't read the series. I was tempted here, though, because they've returned to the legacy numbering after ending on, like, issue 21. They added them all together to make one big legacy number, and this is a new jumping on point. But I just don't love Scotty Young, and I just don't love, like, funny, haha, bloody fairy tale murder. But, like, if you've been waiting to try I Hate Fairyland, you should jump on with this issue number 41. I didn't read Jesse XOXO Zombie Hunter from Black Ops Publishing, but we all know that I would enjoy this book. Because it's got a badass lady with guns killing zombies, but I couldn't find it digital. Kick Out the Jams Mother, a book all about music, and again, I could not find it digitally. I probably would have really loved that, which brings us to King Spawn. I will say the thing I say every month, which is that this Rory McConville title with art from Eula Dre Sinar and colors from Ivan Nunez in lettering from Underworld Design is actually the easiest Spawn title to pick up. It's small Spawn. I know it's called King Spawn, but it's actually like ground level Spawn. It's Spawn with easy to understand plots. And I loved this B cover, by the way. So cool. The first cover was by Marco Fela, and this color was from Marcial Toldeno. We'll just start the clock again. So what's really been interesting about this is that it's kind of like Spawn playing this game of chess in a way. This very strategic game against this demonic serial killer who kills children. And Spawn has finally got him cornered, only to find out that he's gotten past Spawn and somehow has represented himself in the physical space where Spawn is trying to protect this kid who should not be killed, must not be killed. So Spawn reaches out through the darkness to communicate with this FBI investigator to be like, I've only got a few seconds before I'm pulled under. The Wraith's got Andy. He'll sacrifice him soon if you don't get there. I've planted the location in your mind. And now it becomes a very small story, not with Spawn, but of this police detective trying to work as Spawn's hand on Earth while Spawn is trapped in this battle to find this kid and protect him from this devil who unfortunately this guy has a history with. And so he partially has kind of the wrong motivation to save this kid because he's like, can you explain why you killed my family once upon a day? And because of that, his eyes taken off the ball. This page was just so sinister. Him like walking up and asking the murderer, like, why did you do it? And the murderer kind of just laughing and looking. And now he's got the kid that he's kidnapped in these sacrificial white robes with this horned crown. Like, it really worked for me. It ended on a really dark note. And I'm like, this is one of those things that I am here to read Spawn for. Yes, go dark. Yes, make it about a devil that only can remain on Earth if he kills little children. Like, I, as a parent who doesn't always like dark, bloody stuff, like, this is towing that line perfectly in a way that makes me go like, yeah, like, I want to keep reading it. So cool. I dropped the loose end a while ago from Hardcase. It just felt like it was just going to be The Hangover, but with drugs. And I guess The Hangover had drugs, so just The Hangover, it just didn't really appeal to me. Lost Fantasy. So here's the thing, and I gave you a preview of how I was going to feel about this last month. By the way, that Spawn book did have Todd on additional script, but it turned out fine. This is by Kurt Piras, Luca Casalaguida, Mark Dale, and Micah Myers. So Kurt Kieres is the master of the first issue. Nobody at Image, nobody in Indie right now is writing a first issue with a big idea as wild as him. Then we get to the second issue. I'm not saying this was bad, but I'm just saying after he introduces the world, and in this case, this whole world of monsters coming up from the underground, much like Mole Man and Fantastic Four, but there's a secret society that's been around since the end of World War I that hunts them and keeps them away from people. So it's kind of also like something's killing the children. Like this whole issue basically just, I don't know. I can't even explain what it's about. It shows us there's more of these monster hunting people and they're not all on the same side of each other. And then they have a fight. I don't know. It felt really vague. It felt like we didn't get any further into the definition of this world that was so cool in the first issue. And it felt like it was just an issue of something is killing the children. Like it didn't feel like it had any special sauce on it that made it distinct or unique. It really felt stolen from something is killing the children. Not just something's killing the children with like the serial numbers a little bit filed off, but just a straight up pickup of something is killing the children. And that to me kind of like took me out of it. It wasn't bad, and I still am enjoying Luca Casalaguida's artwork, but I need Kurt, and I know this is what happens in Kurt Pierre's books. He always hooks me, and then I always tail off. I want it to be interesting, and I'm rooting for it to be interesting. I'm going to keep reading it, but I just need it to be something other than a copy of Something is Killing the Children. Okay, first of all, before we even start the timer, we need to be looking at this cover by Pablo Villalobos of Magic. Look at it. It's so gorgeous. Also, I kind of would just go to my bathroom and use this as a makeup guide and said she's got a great nose contour. She's got a little shiny ombre on her lip, even though she's in shadow. It almost looks like Pepe Larra's at certain parts in the art and the line art. I love how she's in shadow. I love the fire crown on her head. This is just outstanding. Really one of the best covers for me so far this year. Okay, now we're going to start the clock. I have been rooting for Ashley Allen so hard. I loved her first issue, and I really loved where we got to at the end of issue 5. There was some rocky road in between, but like I think she understands something critical about Ileana. So I'm like, please be good. Please get over your rookie writer imbalances, because it just feels like there's something magic, sorry pun, here. Well, guess what? There was something magic here. This issue was incredible. Art from Jesus Hervas. His art was a little on the elemental side for me. He could do defined faces, as we see with Magic's face at the bottom of this page, but sometimes things were just like a little too sketchy for me. Kind of reminds me of older GF Shaw or Gary Brown, who did Baby Teeth. It was fine, but to go from the amount of high gloss that we had prior to this was like with German Peralta, it was a little bit jarring. But Arthur Hesley really kept the colors working. But the story here, you can go read this right now. It's a one-shot issue. You don't need to have read any of the rest of Magic, and it's pretty much, can Magic make nice with Madeline Pryor? She's kind of said, I don't want to be involved in Limbo anymore. So now Maddie is officially the queen of Limbo, but actually Maddie's on Earth because she's at the Limbo Embassy in New York. And so there are some demons in Limbo who have some opinions about that and think they can usurp her, which we've seen a little bit of in Storm recently. So this is kind of doing some interweaving between the X-Men titles, which hasn't been happening too much. And this story just pops. The writing for Magic is good. The writing for Maddie is good. I like how it resolved. The action was satisfying. It was a good issue. I wish the art was just a little bit tighter, but you know what? Like, it kind of just, it makes me worried when we get an artist that's a newer artist that we don't know as well, that's looser like this, because it feels like it must mean the book's not selling as well, because the book can only pay for the artist it can pay for. So if we get past arc number 1 and then the alternating artist is like somebody who's a really different quality of the artist on the arc number 1, I'm like, ooh, I think we might have gotten somebody cheaper. But that is not a knock on Jesus Hervas. I think he has a very distinct style and he does it really well here. It's just jarring because that's not where we were. But this issue, this came very close to being my Marvel pick of the week. It was incredible. I'm ready to, I'm staying in Ashley Allen's corner. I'm ready to support. I'm ready to beat the drum for her. I want to see her continue to grow because I think this could be a really interesting voice. And I think she really understands Ileana, which is the best part. James Abel saying, I found it fun. It felt like a backdoor pilot for Madeline Pryor, or maybe a Maddie and Magic Limbo team up series, X Limbo or something like that. Yeah, Renzo, and happy that Maddie was in this. Have we yet made it to a book that have we made it to a book yet that Krisis yet, or is it a murderer's row of hated books? Oh, but I like this one. Limbo has an embassy. Yeah, man, catch up. It was from the end of Fall of X, and then it's persisted since the end of Fall of X. Always a good reason to read some Madeline. Magic 6, great issue. Loved how Maddie and Magic were developed. Seems like this was an across-the-board hit for everybody, which makes me very excited. I'm so happy to be able to get to say good things about this book. Now we come to Marvel United, a Pride special. I might need more than a minute of this. So as we might remember, last week I was heartily offended by how ghettoized the DC Pride special was and how it kind of shoved all their queer characters into a boring corner where they all had to go to the same bar and be queer in the same way as each other and have dashed hopes and dreams with each other. This could not have been more different. And also the creators were horrible. This was a book of A-list creators telling A-list stories with cool characters that did not just pigeonhole them for their queerness. It was successful. The first issue blew me away. It was by Al Ewing, who, by the way, is out as bisexual, and Kei Zama, who uses they, them pronouns, and Brittany Peer, also they, them on colors, along with Irma Navilla on colors as well. And it was a really cool story of the Avengers Academy kids, who I love. So it was Captain America of the Railways and Escapade, but it also was making use of the Queen of Never. I love this page. This is only art. These are only words, but words and art make dreams, and dreams are binding. Those who hate us live in cages of burning wire they built for themselves, a prison in every head, a jailer in every heart. They lie with their every dying breath, but we have always been true. We have always been. We know who we are, and who we are belongs to us. I want to frame this and put it on the wall. What great writing. What a cool page. Loved it. So I love this first Al Ewing story. Then this second story, look, this is still the first story. You cannot go wrong with queer people beating up hate monger. I know we've been back to this well many times. I'll never turn it down, and Al Ewing does it incredibly well here. It's just fun. It uses Escapade really well. This, if you like Avengers Academy, you'll like this, and if you liked this, you would like Avengers Academy. Then we come to the second story by Wyatt Kennedy with Bailey Underwood on pencils and inks and Irma Niville on colors again. This was really charming. It was mostly a dream sequence, and you will figure out very early it's a dream sequence, but I liked it because it's playing with the idea of Mystique as a mother if she could have just been a mother, which is tied up with her own queerness. I mean, Mystique is by definition non-binary, although she usually identifies as a woman and appears as a woman, and she's in a queer relationship with Destiny, and she's just looking back of like, what if I could have been Nightcrawler's mom? And that's not just about her queerness, right? She also happens to be a blue, rather evil mutant, and there are a lot of factors that have to do with why she had to give up Nightcrawler as a baby. But like this, it just was, the art from Bailey Underwood was so pretty. It was so sweet. And even though I knew in my mind right away that it was an alternate universe thing and it didn't matter, I think it identified something really interesting about Mystique, and it gave her a layer that we have not seen from her before. Then the third story by Zoe Tunnell, yes, who I know from the world of X-Fans Online, who writes Blade Maidens, who I'm just so happy to see her writing at Marvel. I don't think she actually likes me on social media. It doesn't really care because I'm just really, I think it's cool, and I'm very proud that she's here doing this, and the story was fun. This was a Black Cat and Sarah story. Sarah, Angela's girlfriend, who's a trans character. The art here is by Frederica Manson, and colors by the amazing Tamara Bonvillain. This was so fun, and I feel like Zoe Tunnell did so much repair on Sarah's character arc and who she was, even in a fun, pretty action-oriented story with Black Cat. I think nobody purposely did anything bad or harmful with Sarah, but I just think that like this kind of regrounded her and like made her story make a little bit more sense, and didn't just do it as like a kill your gays, break up your queer story where she couldn't be with Angela just because there's queer and we have to break the queer characters up too. It just felt like I felt more resolved with this and her as I have been, in the art, and the colors were really fun in this fight against despair. Just so good. I love this version of Black Cat and the smirking quality of her. And then the final story was an Anthony Oliveira story called My Buddy with Pablo Collar on art. So it's the same team from Avengers Academy with Michael Wiggum on colors. And this explores the story of Arnie Roth a little bit more, who is a character who is introduced by J.M. DeMatteis in Captain American comics as one of his friends from before he went off to the war, who was gay and had not been out at the time, and then goes to war and kind of becomes a war hero. And it was one of the first out gay characters in comics, although he meets a sort of sad fate in the original DeMatteis comics. And so Anthony Oliveira has been doing a job to kind of like bring him back and give him more context and like make his story a little bit more seen and heard. This was just a really great story, and Pablo Collar really turned in some of the best art I've ever seen him do here. I just really, really liked it. Anthony Oliveira, they did a great job in the script. And then really fun action, just really a fun story. And then we end with this interview with J.M. DeMatteis about his creation of Arnie Roth, interviewed by Angelique Roche, I should say. This made me cry. It just was, I wish I had saved more of it and I could just read the whole thing too, because a lot of it's just about J.M. DeMatteis and his love of comic books, but then he goes into like why he made this gay character be a childhood friend of Steve Rogers. Like, what a weird thing to do. Nobody in editorial was mandating that. And it brought tears to my eyes, like, because that's allyship. I mean, to say like it's 1982 and me and Mike Zeck are going to find a way to insert a gay character into Captain America, but the whole thing that J.M. DeMatteis says about it is like, he's like, well, I thought like there were women that were prominent in this comic book. He had a black sidekick. Like there were, there were Native American characters in comic books now, indigenous characters. And I just felt like, why isn't there a gay character? And like, that's what it looks like to be an ally in media and put people's stories out. And now we're at a point where that character exists. And because we made space for the character in the universe in the past, even though that was 40 years ago, now there's room for people like Anthony Oliveira to write that character. I love this Pride special front to back. I don't just think it's because I know Marvel better than DC. I just think Marvel had higher quality creators and more interesting stories that were not just about the ghettoization of queer people that have to be queer. Okay. Well, to be fair, the Zoe Tunnel thing, I'm not trying to start a feud. There was just a time that like things were a little factionalized between the people that were on Women Write About Comics and the people that were on Comics XF and the people that used to be on another site that used to exist, Comfort Food Comics. And I just think that like we were in like different groups and like I wasn't friends with people she was friends with in very high school. I don't know. She might not even be aware of who I am, but I hold her in very high regard and I think she's a very good writer and I just am excited to see her here at Marvel. I'm not trying to start or perpetuate any kind of beef. And again, she may not even know who I am. Pope Romero, yeah, it's here listening as I get some stuff done around the house. Thanks always for a great show. Hello to you as well. So yeah, highly recommend that Pride special. I did not read Naruto Bus, which is the next totally weird one-shot in the never-ending madness that is Dave Sims' Cerebrus. I did read one a couple of years ago and I was like, well, that was a comic book. However, I did read New Avengers by Sam Humphries. Sam Humphries, I don't know, did he get some TV work or something? He really hasn't been doing too many comics for the past couple of years. This is with Tan Lima on art, not an artist I recognize, and Rain Barreto, who I feel like usually colors for DC, and then letters from Joe Sabino. So what a mix-up on this team. This issue, was it good? I couldn't decide. I do really like the dynamic that Sam Humphries is writing for Winter Soldier and Black Widow, and he's kind of just writing them as very mischievous coworkers who also sometimes fuck, and it really worked for me. And I love that she's like, there's some people we need help from, and he's like, I'm not doing this team thing, I'm not doing Thunderbolts, I'm not doing Avengers. She's like, okay, but what if we just had a little bit of help? And then they bring in Laura Kinney, who of course we all love, as Wolverine, and it absolutely jumps right off of the fact that she had just been teaming up with Winter Soldier in her own series. I love that. That's the whole reason we're reading the Marvel Universe, to make them interconnected. Also, great splash page. Like, as the issue was going on, I'm like, yo, Tom Lima, your art is great. And so then we also add another great splash page of Namor, who's like, why am I even involved in this? Which I love when Namor is totally mean and bitchy and petty. And he says, tell me, Barnes, where shall I direct my fury? Love that. Love him. It actually just really worked for me. I just had so much fun with it. I'm a little skeptical because I don't always love Sam Humphries' writing and where he takes things. But if this is the excuse that he's made for these two characters already, and we get a little bit of Clea in here too, look, I'm totally into however he wants to put this team together. And this could be like a very fun, very different sort of insurgent Avengers book. I'm sure it's going to get canceled along with everything else when all the things relaunch later this year, which it seems like we are moving towards. But like, I just really had a lot of fun with it. James Abel, this was fun. It reminded me of some Dark Avengers runs from 2009. I love how it tied into Laura Kinney Wolverine issues with her and Bucky. Javier Hernandez really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think this is a recommend for me. I mean, who knows? Issue 2 could bomb. You never can know from an issue number 1, but I really liked it. Now we come to New Champions. This is by Steve Fox with art from Rory Coleman, colors from Arthur Hesley, who I'm really starting to love, and letters from Travis Lanham. I had trepidation about this issue because I'm like, how are you going to put the whole Avengers in this book where we barely even know the New Champions characters? Like, it just felt like it was going to be really crowded. But Steve Fox, he does know what he's doing. I think Marvel just throws him at so much stuff, and sometimes he doesn't have time to like settle in and show his power and his plotting ability. But now that we're up to an issue 6, which is longer than he's gotten in a lot of series, it's kind of starting to work. And I really like Rory Coleman's art here because it opens it up with Captain Marvel coming down to meet this teen Marvel that is kind of like using her old look and her old power set. And then as a result, they get all the Avengers together to help the kids go and fight against Magnetrix or whatever. Yeah, Magnetrix, who's kidnapped their friend. And it worked for me because it used the Avengers to help us get to know the kids better, which I think proves that Fox is actually a really talented writer. The art was really good throughout, and I find that I'm actually starting to like these kids. I love this moment of Moon Knight just passing by and seeing Moon Squire or whatever the kid's name is, and he's like, skill boots or not, I do not approve of a kid wearing my costume. And the kid's like, oh, he actually thinks that the actual Moon Knight is scary. That's fun. Like I found as of this issue, I actually like these characters now. Quincognito is saying Steve Fox is like Marvel's ultimate cleanup guy. They literally just throw him at whatever thing they want to see and they don't have anybody for. And I hate that for him because I actually think he's really talented, and Marvel either throws him at things or they give him no time. They're like, okay, you've got all the characters you've ever wanted, but you have 4 issues to do it with. Like, and I just think that hopefully this shows that if they would just let him be on a run and plot it for a while, he really could do good things. Yeah, I suddenly am on this book's side. I was not expecting that to be the outcome of reading this issue. Okay, One World Under Doom by Ryan North, R.B. Silva, and David Curiel with letters from Travis Lanham. So look, my debate about this up to this point is that the Avengers have been acting so out of character in order to make the Doom stuff work, which has really, really bothered me. However, this issue, which sees Doom bring back all of the characters who Dormammu had just like whipped off of the planet to be like, we've got to fight Dormammu together, it actually worked. And then we finally get like a real nuanced conversation between the various Avengers about like how much can they trust this version of Doom as they're cleaning up the rubble. And I think North plays a really good, resonant, interesting beat with Thor where he's like, look, just to play devil's advocate here, Asgard has a king. Like, what if Doom is benevolent? What is wrong with that? Like, you people on Earth like to believe that Midgard is so different than all the other realms, but many of the other realms do fine with a ruler, and it actually just makes things a lot simpler and makes people more equal. I'm a king, do you hate me? And like, that's smart. That's what we need. We need counter arguments from people that don't just thrust us into this absurd civil war kind of like everybody acting out of character moment, which is what kind of happened in issue 2 and 3 here. Let's find the characters who actually would feel compelled to play devil's advocate and have them speak up for Doom because they're like, honestly, I can't argue against it. And seeing Squirrel Girl be like, you missed, I don't know, freedom. Earth is under an emperor, and Asgard is under its king, just as countless others of thy Midgardian nations are. We quibble semantics, Lady Green. Doom is at his highest, and he hath raised Midgard up with him. We are all happily rid of Dormammu, things go well. And our victory is so complete that even death herself could not claim a soul today, from the mighty Thor to the mighty Frank from custodial services. I say thee, we cannot ignore that simply because we do not like the man. That's good! That's good. I didn't read Painkiller Jane and G.I. Zombie, which actually had 2 different issues out this same week. I did read Phoenix. Now, if you remember, last month, Phoenix rallied, and I liked this new story, in part because I liked the new colorist on this book, Javier Tartaglia, but also because Stephanie Phillip was finally letting us have time with Jean. Well, first of all, I mean, this cover, Jesus Lord, Lord's new hit album, Virgin. Just look at this cover, my God. But unfortunately, Stephanie Phillips cannot focus on Jean Grey for 2 issues in a row. Is this like what is this what it's like to watch me have ADHD and play with my hair instead of talking about the comic? No, this issue decides it's all going to be about Sarah Grey. Now, granted, I think Stephanie Phillips did a good job here because Sarah Grey has a lot of continuity. She's Jean's dead sister. She used to be a mutant rights activist as a human, and then she gets captured by the Phalanx and Bastion and got infected. Like, she's got so much history. And I do think Stephanie Phillips makes some sense of it here. It's just not that compelling. Like, it's a whole issue. We just got back to Jean. We just had an issue of Jean. I just think that, like, who is the editor that's like, yeah, that's good. That script that you have planned, that it doesn't have our lead character in it, that's a huge hit that's about to be in Marvel Rivals, don't have her in the issue at all. It'll be fine without her. That said, I'm enjoying the story. I think it's mining an interesting beat of continuity, and I've got some positive feelings about it. Okay. I I almost sought this out. This is a Kickstarter book, Rise, issue number 3. So it's like one of these things that only comes out like every like year or two. But I was like, well, surely the art insides can't be as good as this cover because this is a really cool, dynamic cover. And I went and found the Kickstarter, and the interior art is this good. So it's another one where it's only physically in the catalog, and to get digital, you would have had to back the Kickstarter. But I think I followed the creator because next time they do a Kickstarter, I am going to back it. And I think I'm going to get the previous issues. It's kind of just like a very adult indie take on a superhero. Not that like adult. I mean, he does have sex apparently, but it's not like adult. Like it's a titty book with a D, titties, right? It doesn't seem like that's what it's about. It just like is an adult look at superhero. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Irredeemable, maybe just because of the color scheme. But this cover is amazing. So you hooked me right now. You got me. You got me. Oh Jesus, 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 my Lord and Savior. So I decided, because this was a number 1, that I would read a comic book by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen, even though I hate their Descender Ascender. It started good, but it descended into hate. But I was like, you know what? I love Jason Todd, and Jason Todd did not get a lot of play as Robin, so I was like, maybe this will be interesting going back. Here's the thing. I'm not against the style of watercolor interior, but if you're going to do it, the line work around the watercolor needs to be amazing. And here the watercolor is great. Like it's the amount of shading that's going on here. And I don't know if it's all watercolor, just that style. It's incredible. But Robin's face is so gawky and inconsistent and loosely lined. I just could not pay attention. Like page after page, I'm like, why is his cheek of this big chubby angle on it here? Why is his chin that shape there, but not that shape there? It's too inconsistent. And it drives me crazy because I love this color approach from Dustin Nguyen, but I just was too angry about the line art aspect of it. Also, I think Jeff Lemire completely gets Jason Todd wrong. I mean, this is not Jason Todd, and it's not a Black Label book, so I can't even say like, whoops, a Black Label book. But no, I mean, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I totally regret the time I spent reading it. Why? But you know what? Because I love you, dear watchers, and I will always give number 1s a chance because you never know. It might be that one time. I probably should go back and read that Aubrey Sitterson book, but you know what? I don't F with Aubrey Sitterson. Which brings us to Runaways. Oh yeah, baby. We're back. This is my official comfort comic of the pre-pandemic years by Rainbow Rowell, and it's got Eisner winner Elena Casagrande here. And this book has a great reason to tie into One World Under Doom because the Runaways have a Doom life model decoy that just hangs out with them and works as their butler / chaperone. This Rainbow Rowell stepped into this with zero hesitation. It feels exactly like it picks up from where we were. But as somebody who has the memory of a goldfish, I completely forgot where we were, and it brought it all back to me. I love that Rainbow Rowell is like playing the beat of grief and depression for these runaways. It's not going to just be that forever, but like they have a sad life right now and they are not feeling great about it. I love the beat that she plays with Nico here, coming home from work and just being like, why am I even doing this? What is even going on? I love this beat of them in the kitchen as this much smaller family they've been with Molly Hayes and Gertie and Victor Mancha. I love that. It just, and also I loved that even though Elena Casagrande is a titan of art on her own, she is definitely doing some minor things here to kind of give this the look of the prior artists on this series, which were Chris Anka and Andre Genole, which I think is so cool. Like, it's so neat that she's captured kind of the shapes of the lips and the nose a little bit to make it feel of a piece. And Dee Cunniffe has been the colorist all along, so maintaining the colors here really worked. And then when this explodes into confrontation, again, another panel that has just a little hint of that Chris Anka flair. When this explodes into confrontation at the end, because basically the Doombots are going around and rounding up all the Doombots that have kind of just been left to linger places to be like, look, Doom is the king of the world right now, so we need a really unified media front here. We can't have any Doombots walking around doing off-label things. They can't be mob bosses, they can't be drug dealers, and they certainly can't be wearing a pink apron and acting as chaperones of the Runaways. And of course that turns into confrontation. This is a perfect comic book. It was extraordinary. It's everything I love about Runaways, everything I love about Marvel continuity, everything I love about Marvel's art and colors. There was not a single thing to critique. I'm sure this is going to wind up in my top 10 of the year because I love Rainbow Rowell and I love her Runaways, and this is just incredible. Okay. I don't read Sister Imperator, which is from the world of Ghost, which is a band, not Ghost the comic book character. I do read Something is Killing the Children. And this is so weird because I wish I could have been reading regularly and talking to you regularly when the first few arcs of this were coming out, because it was like lightning in a bottle. It was just like, wow. It was like this thing that nobody had ever had before and nobody had ever done before, and was so intriguing. But now it feels like James Tynion is just stuck. He got to a point in the present day where he can't write any more of Erica Slaughter doing what she's doing, and so we're just stuck in the second or third arc of flashbacks. That said, this issue was very good, and if you can have the patience for these flashbacks, which sometimes I don't, this was really good. I think it was some of the best art from Werther Dell'Orta that we had for a while. Great colors from Michael Murto, letters from Manuel Design. It just really sang for me because Erica Slaughter and her mentor in the past drive up to this little like mountain resort ski place where there has been a monster killing, and the monsters in the series are always attracted to children, but then they kill everything around the children to terrorize them before they eat the children themselves. And so we kind of take the focus off of the Slaughters and we just look at this hotel. We look at the two queer guys who are running the bookshop in the hotel, and they're hilarious. We look at the sheriff in the town who's like, I'm kind of feeling like the sheriff in Jaws right now, to the owner of the hotel, and he's like, do you want to be the mayor in Jaws? Like, it just was clever. And I think that that's the thing that's great about James Tynion, is he just hits personal beats so well. Like, you don't need something big in a Tynion book because he's so good at writing these little moments with these funny little characters and making it really sing. So this was so good that I almost forgave it from being like the third flashback thing in a row, because I do think it's going to show us something really interesting and essential about Erica Slaughter as a young character and how she got the way she is. But I really got to get back to the present day in this book. I would just have so much more fun if we could be back in the present day. Now we come to Spawn 365. That means you could read one issue of Spawn every day for the next year and only get up to present in Spawn. This is a script and plot by Todd McFarlane, art by Brett Booth, inks from Adelzo Corona, colors from Robert Nugent, and letters from Tom Orzechowski. This just remains really fun. It's getting a little bit into the like waiting for something to happen zone right now, because basically it's doing like this big thing that's sent from Nyx from Hell, is marching towards something, and he really wants Spawn to come and meet him. But first of all, Brett Booth's art was, again, so enjoyable. Really great colors. So many great toyetic different characters here that Spawn is meeting with. And basically the whole issue tells the story of like these characters can't get close to this giant kaiju thing. And so Spawn eventually is going to have to go and meet it, and if he goes and meets it, he will be risking it stealing his powers, which is what Nyx wants to do. So it does feel like a little like in-betweener issue, but it does also feel like a very understandable conflict with a very specific choice for Spawn at the center of it, which is often what's missing from this book. So this is as much as I've enjoyed Spawn in several years now. I'm really enjoying it. I've seen you guys have made some really interesting comments, but they weren't quite about the current book, and I want to keep it rolling, but we are going to absolutely talk about them all at the end. Okay, next is Spider-Girl. This is a spinoff from Spider-Boy, and it's written by somebody who I love and have actually done a video with before on Omar's channel, Tarun Grombeck. Art by Andre Risso, colors from Java Tartaglia, and letters by Joe Caramaga. Here's the thing. This Spider-Girl, she's a very fun character because she's just this mean kid. Like, I like when kid characters don't always have to be like, oh, cute and nice. She's not a nice character. And she's a mutant that kind of has rogue's abilities, but she gets them from like looking somebody in the eye. But then she does get your full abilities, not just your muscle memory. So she's like a cross kind of between rogue and prodigy. And that's really fun. But I just think that this issue just didn't get it off the ground floor. Like, it spends so much time establishing that she's going to this karate dojo that like it just doesn't feel like we got any time to have fun with her and as a character in a way. And I just don't think Andre Risso's art was quite right for this. He's got more of like a gawky, it kind of reminded me of the art on Fence from Boom, which I really like. And it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but Spider-Boy was so perfectly glossy and bendy and colorful and fun that I think to spin something off from him, I know that it's trying to make its own identity, but even the colors from Rava Tartaglia, I just think are a little too wan. I want to see this look bold and more toyetic and childlike and full of primary colors like Spider-Boy was. And if it's not that book, it's not that book. But I think that that's what made Spider-Boy so successful, is it just felt like such a fun kid book, even though it had some scary elements in it. And then the story just didn't really go anywhere. Like, she fights a bunch of copy of vermin. I don't really like the way Andre Russo is drawing her in her costume, and it just left me not that interested. Like, somebody wants her for her powers. Like, it just didn't feel like there's anything intrinsic about her that was as fun as her introduction in Spider-Boy. Her arc in Spider-Boy with her against Spider-Boy in this tournament with Bullseye and Daredevil was hilarious. It was so much fun. I loved her there so much, and it just doesn't really feel like it got into the magic. I don't read Star Trek Lower Decks. I did read Star Wars issue number 2. I'm guardedly positive about this Alex Segura Phil Noto book. I think it does feel like the movies, and the way that it feels like the movies is that the movies have a lot of plot threads happening at once, and it does tend to have like Luke running off headstrong to look into something that he doesn't fully understand and kind of like getting in over his head. That's just Luke's way. And so this feels very authentic to the movies. Did I love all of the plot beats? No, but I really do like this B plot that's happening with Leia and Mon Mothma, where they're like trying to negotiate with the galaxy again. And the galaxy, much like that Thor scene in One World Under Doom, is like, we just had an empire. If we treat you as the New Republic, how is that different than having an empire? Maybe we'd rather go without for a little while. And that does feel like the right plot beat to play in the time period that immediately follows the original trilogy, which is the time period that the comics have not spent a lot of time in the past, in the old canon comics, but the novels did. But I don't know those novels, so this is all new to me. Guardedly optimistic. Of course, I always love Phil Noto and art and letters from Clayton Cowles. It might turn out to be something good. It truly might. But we have to see. Okay, Star Wars Hyperspace Stories. This is... could we have more lettering on this cover? Star Wars Hyperspace Stories, Ventress Unveiled, The Bad Batch, Ghost Agents. What is that? What of that is the actual title? Who could possibly say? This is written by Michael Morchi with pencils from Reese Hannigan, inks from Elizabeth D'Amico, colored from Michael Etia, and lettered by Tyler Smith with Bobby Bradford. This had a little bit of coherence to it, and actually the art from Reese Hannigan was really, really strong here. But my problem with this series all along is I understand who this Bad Batch is. It's all different clones that were Clone Warriors that are on their own as mercenaries. I don't think it does a good enough job of naming them, differentiating them. I think if you have 4 characters that are, the whole joke is that they're the same character, you gotta have a recap page. You gotta name them in the story, not because I forget, but because I literally cannot tell them apart. Like, they're not distinct enough to get away with the storytelling you're telling. And then again, the story just feels so small stakes. Like, they're still on this planet, they're wading through some sewers, and then they're trying to get off the planet, and the evil Jedi kind of lady yells at them. Like, it just feels like we've now spent 3 issues on something that felt like it was going to be such a fun, interesting chase after the first issue, just dealing with like small ball stuff that doesn't show these characters off to be fun at all. I don't understand. I just don't know who they are, which really bugs me, because it seems like, maybe this is just for people who already know Bad Batch and already like the Bad Batch, but I just think that that's a waste of a comic that could be drawing fans in at this point. Then we come to the final issue of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and as I've said, month under month, unfortunately, Jodie Hauser only could make this as good as the script she was working from, which is one of the worst scripts, I think, in the past 20 years of movies, and she's got Will Sliney by her side on art, with Guru FX on color, and Travis Lanham on letters. The thing here is there is the beginning of an interesting beat. Like, there's stuff happening in space and stuff happening on the ground. It's intercutting. They have to take out the guns or take out the radar. So then Dre could do the thing and then take out the guns. And then it just turns into, and Will Sliney's doing great on art. And then it kind of all just collapses, which I know is what happens at the end of the movie, so they couldn't help it. But this is such a sad, sad end to such a great, great series of movies. 8 pretty good, 2 totally extraordinary movies, and 1 movie that just blows it all. And it just makes me really sad for when a company just feels the need to get something out in the market, especially to put an end on something, and it permanently ruins the legacy. Like, Star Wars will never be as good as it was again because this story exists, and that's so sad. But that's what happens when you cave into market forces and you just want to make some money and you just throw somebody at something and you say, make anything. And unfortunately, it's the same thing that happens on X-Men right now. When you have the people in control just being like, do the thing, just get the product out there, then you permanently harm that IP, and Star Wars will never be the peak that it was because the story exists. Okay. Art was pretty great, though. Story didn't make a lick of sense, but the art from Will Sliney is pretty cool. I didn't read Super Babes, another AC comic that I believe is a spinoff from FemForce. I did read Supergirl, and unfortunately, this very quickly descended into the comic that I was fearing that it would be, which is a bunch of small ball, cutesy, like, power and life switching nonsense from Sophie Campbell. I just don't like Sophie Campbell, I like her art. I just think her plotting I barely can remember what happened in this issue, and I made notes and I reviewed those notes before I came on because it was so boring, so boring. And of course, I love Tamara Bonvillain's colors. I love Becca Carey's letters, but like, I mean, the page. This is great, a great looking page, but like her whole thing is like some other person stole her identity and because she broke out of Candor. And then there's this weird, it's almost felt like it was like a secret kink that was being communicated to somebody other than me, that this girl walks out of Candor and she gets Earth's son, and then she like gets fat, not fat, I shouldn't say that, she gets like a body all of a sudden, and she's like chubby and she grows and she gets, you know, like a big butt because the sun does that to her. And that's what it just felt like, weird kink content that I was like, why is this in Supergirl? And just page after page had great art and just made me cringe so hard about the writing. And the thing is, this is clearly in continuity, so I can't even say like, oh, well, this is kind of like a YA book for younger readers, because it's got the Kara we currently have in continuity, and it just seems like a total failure to me. But you know what? The people who like Sophie Campbell like Sophie Campbell. So like, I guess that's who they're shooting for. I don't know. The Surgeon, this unfortunately was just a big old flop, this issue 6. And I want to try to explain why, because I really liked a lot of this indie series, and it has that same problem that I had with Huge Detective earlier, which is like an indie series that has a great idea and doesn't know how to get out of that idea. Endings are hard, right? And so this is written by John Pence, and it's pencils from Omar Zaldivar with colors from Hedwin Zaldivar. And I think that creatively it was really, really strong. But the problem that it has is twofold. One, it takes the story off of our surgeon. Like, she gets basically kidnapped and human trafficked, and so the whole story shifts to be about these indigenous people that she had just been at war with, and this one guy in specific, as they go to break out their captured brethren from this containment, as basically the surgeon's horse runs back to be like, she's in trouble, and they're like, what's that, girl? The surgeon let you go? Okay. And like the plot really doesn't super go anywhere. It's just like pages. Looks great. I mean, the pencils in this are really, really good. And then the thing that it does is it makes her into the villain at the end, which I really didn't understand. Like, why have this lead character who's a very complex character with a very morally gray sense of like, some things are right and some things are wrong, and she has to do a little bit of both, and why just turn her into the bad guy in the final fight? It just felt like it just didn't feel like fully planned to me. I don't know. And it's a shame because the art was strong. The writing was strong. Like, I would absolutely read more stuff from this creator. I don't think it was bad in any way. It just felt like that's where we got with this character that seems so whole and dynamic at the beginning. I just was very puzzled. Very, very puzzled. Okay. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by Jason Aaron, still with art from Juan Ferreira, lettered by Sean Lee. This was extraordinarily good. I mean, as always, Juan Ferreira's art is just eye-poppingly incredible. I originally had, I think, 5 or 6 different pages I want to show you, and I kept it to 3. There's just so much dimension. There's so much, and he's coloring himself here, and just the turtles just have so much personality in it. But the thing that I really like about this is that it's about a family reuniting. Like, this is about the turtles all being estranged by the end of the Sophie Campbell run, and about them coming back together. And then it's not just going to be like, yeehaw, we're a team again. That like, they have very valid reasons to distrust each other at this point. And now we're kind of cycling through them one by one to see how they refine that faith. For some people, I can appreciate that bit might be moving a little bit slowly, because it kind of feels like that Jason Aaron wants to spend each arc with like 1 issue per turtle at a time, and then 1 5th issue to kind of like be the kicker. But this issue, mostly focused on Michelangelo, really does work because he's the happy-go-lucky turtle, and his way of coming back to a faith in his brothers and a faith in his family is completely different than what Donatello and Leonardo and Raphael are doing. And also the art here, as he finds his way back to it, largely through beating the crap out of some people who are trying to give mutants a bad name, is just so fun, and the art is so kinetic, and it was just gorgeous. This is one of the best comics in the industry right now. I wanted to expand my top 12 to a top 20 so you could see how much I like this, and then just a hair out of the top 12. You do not need to know a lot of turtles to pick it up, just as long as you're okay with the idea that it's really going to jump around from the perspective of all 4 of them, 1 issue at a time, and it's not a turtles that are one big happy family at this time. But this book is extraordinary. Now we come to the other Turtles book, weirdly out on the same release week here, and this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Nation, which is their anthology book telling stories at the edge of their story. Now, I loved the first 4 issues of this, which told 2 complete stories as an A story and a B story across, and I thought that that's what all this would be. I thought it would be anthologized ongoing stories. But now we've just got one-shot stories for 3 issues in a row, and it's wearing me down. That said, I do like the one-shot stories in this one. The first one is One Hail of an Afternoon by Eric Burnham, with art from Michael Shelfer and colors from Rhonda Patterson. Didn't we already have art from Michael Shelfer and something today that I said that I really liked? I don't know. Maybe I'm having deja vu, because I really like the artist, and I always love Rhonda Patterson's colors. She defines what turtles look like. So it's weird that she's not coloring the main one, but I know it's because Ferrer is coloring himself. But like, to me, this is what turtles look like. So both of the stories here, both this one and the second one, are about the foot soldiers that are kind of the de facto police, sort of ICE in a way, in a very prescient analogy, of New York right now, and how various mutants are trying to find a way to live in this world where they're being brutalized by these foot soldiers that are all at the employ of their mayor. So in this time, this one mutant kind of calls back some people who are part of the actual Foot Clan, not associated with these foot soldiers, to kind of tip them off, but it results in confrontation where they can't even get in to see Karai, who would be the person who would be able to fix this, but Rocksteady and Bebop won't let them in. Interesting. Didn't really go anywhere, but it lays some interesting groundwork that maybe will get picked up in Jason Aaron's series. Then this B story, I think this is probably the one that people will enjoy more. It's by our buddy Ball Owler. They are such a fun writer. Art from Gavin Smith, and again, color from Rhonda Patterson. Following this one moose cop on the beat who has to help this roach be escorted out of a bar where he's not wanted, but also keep him from being killed and beaten by these foot soldier agents who are kind of like the anti-mutant ICE agents of New York. And it ends in not a totally happy place, but the art is so good, and I thought it was really nuanced, because like, it's basically looking at like, how does this moose cop deal with the idea that as a cop he's supposed to be supporting the justice that's being sought by these foot soldiers, even though he knows it is a corrupt justice. Like, this really rings pretty damn true after, if you've been watching the media out of California this weekend in the United States. Like, this is a very set in the current day kind of story, and it was executed very well. So I'm just a little weary, because I would prefer to be reading stories that really feel like they're growing somewhere. Right now, these one-offy stories, it's hard to tell if it's all going to get paid off in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles main title or not, but these two stories were pretty good, much better than the ones last month. I just need to talk about this for a second. Maybe this is not the final cover, although I did look it up on Amazon, and I think it is. What is going on with this graphic design? Toxie team up just in this boring ass sans serif font featuring, and then the Toxic Avenger title, which is not even like lassoed out to stand on its own, and Jesus Christ from the pages of Second Coming. Why, like, but without the Second Coming logo, only Jesus Christ with the Second Coming font, but it's actually called Toxie Team Up. Why is the Toxie Team Up lettering sitting right on the line of the box that the other thing is in? It's just terrible. So at first I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening with this graphic design? And then I saw it was written by Mark Russell, which makes sense because he wrote Second Coming, which I started out liking so much. And that was the beginning of me hating Mark Russell. By the third issue, I was like, this guy needs to have some ideas. And I love sacrilegious stuff, but it was bad. So even though I read that Toxic Avenger series and liked it so much, I want to read more stuff by the guy who wrote the Toxic Avenger series, not by Mark Russell. So I skipped it. Then we come to Transformers, which might have been my last book alphabetically of the week that I actually read. This was so bad. It was really bad. It was by Daniel Warren Johnson, art from George Corona and Mike Spicer on colors, Russ Wooten on letters. The thing was, we got this scene of George Corona drawing humans, and it was a reminder of not only how good his storytelling can be, but he really is a perfect substitute for Daniel Warren Johnson. Like, this works well. It looks like Daniel Warren Johnson art, especially colored by Mike Spicer. But then, unfortunately, he had to draw some Transformers. I can't see anything on this page. Maybe it's a contrast choice from the colors, and I should put more of the blame on Mike Spicer, but I can never tell what's happening. I don't know what these figures are doing. I can't tell are they reclining? Are they meant to look like they're in pain, happy? What are these eyes communicating? Nothing, because George Corona has no plan. And you know what? Daniel Warren Johnson, to be fair, has no plan for the script as well. There's so many pages in this issue that I read this page, I am not kidding, 20 times trying to understand what it was communicating, and I still do not think that I could explain it back to you. This comic has turned into a train wreck. I think the good thing about it is Daniel Warren Johnson has an idea of like an interesting story of conflict and humanity or roboticry inside of these robots, but the factions, the characters, the back and forth rubber banding of it, this guy was not ready to write 24 issues of a Transformers comic. We've never seen him write 24 issues of anything. I think that we in the market have over-adulated him a little bit in the same way we were talking earlier about with Al Ewing, and now he's been let loose in a realm where he just is not good enough to run as long as he is. There's plenty of people who are going to say that's good. I can't say that they're right or wrong, but as somebody who's reading it pretty objectively, as a pretty big fan of Daniel Warren Johnson and who brings no affection for the Transformers to the table, I just think it was a total train wreck. And we've seen so many people get blown up and recreated and blown up again and recreated again that I couldn't even tell you who's on which side and if they're alive or not right now. And I cannot wait for him to be done at issue 24 so we can see what Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora can do with this book, because I just think it's tragically bad. Tragically bad. I didn't get a chance to read the first Trident of Ariella comic. I have it for review purposes. I promise you for issue number 3 I'll read. I actually opened it up this morning, but I just didn't have enough time. And the art was really good. So I'm excited to read it. And we know that a lot of you really like mermaid stuff, so I promise I will have something to say about it next time. You could not pay. Somebody could put in a super tip into YouTube right now of $10,000 and I might turn it down rather than have to read this Trinity Daughter of Wonder Woman book by Tom King, because I cannot withstand the mental damage that I would take from this. I don't read Ultimate Black Panther. I'm going to binge the whole final 12 issues when it's all the way done because it's just too horrible book to book. I hate Ultimate X-Men. I just don't like Peach Momoko's paneling. It's not about not liking manga. It's not liking how she in specific panels. And I didn't read I don't know how this got at the end here. I guess the Umbrella Academy, the Sparrow Academy. Umbrella Academy is fine. It's not my favorite thing, and I don't need to read more of it. And I dropped World Tree because it just shat the bed too bad on that final issue. And I don't read Disney's Zootopia, even though it's by Jeff Parker, who is pretty great. And that brings us to the end. So let me scroll back up to the last time that we were actually catching everybody's comments and see what you had to say along the way. All right, I think I found where we left off here. Talking again about things that were editorially mandated. Jamie C47 saying, that's a great question. Oh, we did talk about that. The James Shooter mandated. Oh, Sitterson, I think the thing is, Reaper, I also can't stand him. Or them, I'm sorry. I don't know their pronouns. Because they briefly took over G.I. Joe, and it was right after Paul Allor had written G.I. Joe, or right before Paul Allor. I forget which. And it was like really bad, and almost like he was making fun of it. And I remember people got really angry with him about the way that he was writing G.I. Joe. And they're like liberal, long-haired, woke, terrible G.I. Joe, which is funny because I am quite woke and have long hair too. But I was like, but I kind of agree with you. It's like one of those things where like I also hated The Last Jedi, but not because it was too woke, but because I just thought that there were bad decisions. But in this case, I was like, actually, yeah, I can kind of see it. Sometimes the stop clock is right once a day. And so then I like read some interviews with him and like heard him in some interviews, and he just kind of came off as this like total asshole. And then I read another book by him because I try to give things a chance, and it was like bad. So I was like, okay, that's all I need to know. The guy's an asshole. He's the woke that's given me a bad name as another woke person. And he's also a bad writer. And so I just like, I will give him a chance. My clock resets every couple of years. Every 3 or 4 years, I'll try something new from somebody who I've kind of written off. But like, I have no compulsion to want to try that. Always an Instigator wants to jump into Spawn, but it's so big and it feels so daunting. Can I just hop into King with minimal prior knowledge? Yeah, I think, especially if you have Global Comics where all this stuff is, which just lessened its price by $1 a month, you absolutely could just jump in and read King Spawn from the beginning. That's why I recommend King Spawn. It's digestible Spawn. It's Spawn that's just small. It has its own plot. You don't need to know a whole lot of Spawn's history. You don't have to. In that main Spawn series, you really could have just jumped on in one of the last 2 issues, 363 or 64. I think it was 364 that I really loved that had all those splash pages. But Spawn is just so big and hard to understand who everybody is and why they show up and what his motivations are. King Spawn is the book that like feels like it's just easier to follow, and it feels like it pays homage to why we liked Spawn to begin with. Really interesting conversation going on in the background here about Jim Shooter and just like Jim Shooter's discussion about why Jean had to die, or if it was that she had to die, or that she just had to kind of learn her lesson. Magic number 6, One Wheel Track says, love that Maddie hasn't been ignored, and I love the dynamic between Yana and Maddie. I think Alan gets it bang on. I would love a Maddie mini if that's the way of comics. Yeah. Cedric and Ellen loving the Magic series, but I want a Satana series. I love Satana. Such a cool character. And then this is the first time Marvel has actually done a really good Pride special. Yeah, their Pride specials sometimes are like, like one good story of like a couple good characters, but like the whole special didn't give me like tingly feelings. And sometimes it just feels like, ugh. But this one, I like tingled the whole time. Like it wasn't the best comic I've ever read. It would have been my pick of the week if it was. But I just felt like, ooh, this is special. Like this is a special that is special. And I just felt that the whole time through. Tamara Bonvillain is the best colorist in comics. I don't know if I'm ready to jump on that train, but if I had a top 5, she'd be in my top 5. I mean, I always go crazy for Dean White. I love Tomomori. I love David Curiel. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. I really do like Mike Spicer, but and I love the guy who's coloring Absolute Superman. Is it his last name it's like the word for nipples? Ariella. I forget his first name, but that's like my top tier people right now. But I love so many colorists. But yeah, Tamara Bonvillain, you could make a strong case. Pope, I already said hi to Pope. Whether they get a chance to finish the JMD Mateus Cap run via Masterworks, maybe not, because of the cancellation of the Masterworks. Luckily, we have it in Epic Collections. Stoops loves and always needs more Namor. You changed your profile picture, Stoops. That was confusing me. You should change it if you want to change it. But you know me, I have my whole, I have to remember your name and then your profile picture and then something I've learned about you. That's the only way to keep you in my head. And, yeah. Pinima, after I was talking about New Champion, says, I love a good story with great characters, hate when they have to feed the narrative. Yeah, just let them be good characters. And that's what my fear was of the Avengers showing up. I was like, oh, this is not going to give them a chance to just be themselves. But no, it actually kind of helped them. Reaper Hexy, can't wait for the Hellfire Vigils discussed. Even though I don't try to spoil myself to get ahead, I do read a lot of the writers that write for comicsxf.com. Really cool site, really thoughtful, inclusive commentary. And they've been ripping this X-Men era a new one, which is part of why I've felt okay ripping in a new one, because I'm like, well, they're usually pretty even-handed with stuff. So if they're saying that it's terrible, then I can't be totally wrong. And I did read their coverage of the Vigil issue, and yeah, so I know what to expect there. Lance McNair is saying, I'm on the 5th trade paperback for Ryan North's Fantastic Four, and so far it's hitting for me. Yep, through the 5th paperback, it's perfect. It's only this final arc that's happening at the same time as One World Under Dune, where all of a sudden it's kind of shaky. Up until issue 27, 28, just perfect Fantastic Four comic books. Loved it so much. Logan Wayne loving my Thor voice. I was even feeling as I was doing it that it wasn't quite the right Thor voice, but that's because maybe in my mind I was thinking I should have been doing the Chris Hemsworth voice, which is more, I can't quite do it. It's like he's making too much of an effort to not be Australian. I don't always love the voice that he does for Thor. Stoop saying I should read more comics online. I've been trying to pick comics that have actually good lines in them, so I have a reason to read them too, because that not only reminds me of what I want to say, but it's fun. I like reading them. But I have to not be tongue-tied and take my time with it, because then if I try to rush through it, which I did last week, I just it's a jumble, and I don't think it speaks very well for me or for the comic book. Quinn Canito saying all the editors in X right now seem like they're rubber stamping things. Yeah, I would agree. Bunkmaster saying me not liking a Jeff Lemire book? Shocking. Here's the thing though. I feel like I've seen him do good things at DC. I love his Terrifics. So I think sometimes if he gets the right kind of superheroes and he kind of finds a cool riff on it, I can follow him. But the Batman and Robin thing, he was like, father-son drama, excellent. It didn't really feel like he was interested in doing anything interesting with Jason Todd's character. He was just feed me the trauma, it feeds me. So yeah, I just couldn't get into it. I think the cover, I would agree. The cover was way, 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 way tighter than the internal art. And I think that's why I gave it a chance, because I knew that I don't usually like his art, but I was like, oh, but the cover looks pretty tight. I'm trying to bring it back up here, but it's so far up the alphabet. Hold on. And so when I saw the cover, I'm like, well, it looks pretty tight. Maybe it's going to be that tight internally. Maybe I'd like it, because the cover was... oh, whoa, let's not do that. No, nor that. They changed this around a little bit. The cover was really lovely, and the line work was much, much tighter on the cover. As a self-professed slut for watercolors, I will forgive any amount of loss of line work, and that is fair. James the Medium Answer saying, what is the best Jason Todd book, in my opinion? How should he be written? Well, you know, I think it's hard to say because he pretty much was the sole property of Scott Lobdell for like 10 years there. And so we've very rarely seen him written really, really well. But I think the opinion that I have about going back and writing him as a kid is I think he was written well at that time. Like I think he's great in the post-crisis Batman comics in that he wasn't evil and he wasn't super, super violent. He just thought being Robin meant something different than Batman wanted it to mean. And because Batman had always had Dick Grayson before, Batman's like, how do I communicate to him that it's not that I expect him to be like Dick, I just expect him to be something different as Robin. And to be fair, Lemire does kind of play that beat a little bit in the issue, but I think that he takes Jason so far just being this like murder hobo child that it doesn't really work for me because I just don't think that's who he is. It's kind of like he's on this precipice of really being lost in the system and turning into a criminal and turning into a bad kid because of what happened with his parents and kind of being loved and the love making a difference in his life. And Batman's trying to do that, but Batman himself doesn't understand Jason enough to do it. And I think Lemire has a hint of that here, but I think he just goes off the deep end with it. I don't know that we've ever had Jason Todd written really well. And I think Zdarsky actually wrote Jason Todd pretty well. I think there's been writers who have pulled him into Batman that have written him well, but I can't say that he was written great by Scott Lobdell. Kane saying, I feel Doom would make the world a better place purely because it would go against his ego that the world is in such a sad state. It would affect his pride. Yeah, but then I agree. But then you get into like, okay, well, if the whole world has to be in his image, what happens for somebody whose idea of their life and their liberty and freedom is not in Doom's image? And we see that Doom hates Nazis. Doom doesn't seem like he really discriminates. And I think Marvel writers today are having a lot of fun with that. With like, what if we made this like total like autocrat, but actually he's like, people are free to do whatever they want as long as Doom rules all, you know? And that's why it's fun. That's why it's a funny beat, because it's just like such an interesting beat. Logan Wayne recently bought the first 2 deluxe editions of Something's Killing the Children. It's such a fun series and I love it so much. It's a really fast read. It sometimes takes me less than three minutes to read the issues. It's really sparse, but I love the lore that Tinian has built up. I love the rhythm of it. I love the character. I just feel like it got to be such a big franchisable hit that he's just stretching it out like taffy at this point. And I was like, no, man, like why deliver greatest hits every time? If the series just ends, it ends. But it's a world that could go on forever. And it just feels like right around the end of that second deluxe, he kind of painted himself into a corner. But I love it so much. Like I want it to be good. I'm always rooting for it. And I want to see him get out of that corner. James Abel saying, I never read Spider-Boy before. This was my first time reading Spider-Girl and it was just okay. I'll give it a few more issues. Well, you should absolutely go back. It's on Marvel Unlimited now. Read the Spider-Boy arc with Daredevil and Bullseye and Spider-Girl because it was absolutely adorable and it did so well with her. House of Slaughter Deluxe is up for final order cutoff right now. The first arc of House of Slaughter is so good. Written by Tate Brombol, which is why I thought I was going to really like Tate Brombol on Batgirl. And then it turns out I don't necessarily like him. Okay, now we're getting to some new comments. Kane was having some sort of very friendly disagreement with Pitima. I didn't entirely follow what it is. I'll read that when I rewatch the stream to put in the chapter marks, but I'm happy that it was a friendly disagreement. Somehow Palpatine returned. Yeah. Yep. Next Imagine saying, thank you again for everything, Peter, and hope you have good weeks, fellow crushers. Running off to now catch a screening of Cindy Pollock's They Shoot Horses, Don't They, 1977, which in addition to being one of the most renowned anti-capitalist films ever and based upon true events, no less, may have very well been another of 1977's myriad of masterpieces, much like, of course, Star Wars A New Hope. Yes, it's the IDW has done such a great job stewarding TMNT, even if it's tonally not always my thing. It's just so extraordinary. It's 150 issues and then almost like another 100 issues of all these tie-ins and other series. And it's just editorially perfectly controlled. I mean, their editorial team and the way that they work in synergy with Nickelodeon is extraordinary. And it's part of why I read Turtles. I'm not a big Turtles fan. Like I played the video game. I had a couple of the toys, but it's not like 80s. I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, but it's not like one of my favorite things of all time, the way it is for other people. And I just am so enamored with the way they edit it and they organize it and keep it together. Jamie C47 is the single most baffling cover I've ever seen. Oh, maybe the Toxic Avenger and Jesus Christ cover. That's not how the publisher cover looks. The layout remains the same, but no box around Toxic Avenger. Toxic Team Up is in a more presentable typeface. Oh, interesting. So maybe it got exported weirdly for like the catalog or for like the art that gets sent out for solicits. I'll see if I do want to redeem it if it wasn't totally terrible. So let's see if we can find the real cover. Toxie team up #1 because I never want to talk trash about people when they don't need, but I'm seeing it online and I'm seeing it look just as bad. It doesn't have the box around Toxic Avengers, but it does look, oh yeah, I guess, here, I'll try to bring it onto the screen. Hold on. Lots of moving parts here. It does look better here, and there's a little bit more of a stroke around the letters to make them stand off. But it still is just puzzling. It's a puzzling title lockup. I know they're trying to do the Marvel team up thing where it's like Marvel team up and then it says the 2 characters that are in the team up, but Marvel team up, I guess was pretty plain too, but I don't know. It just didn't feel like an afterthought. I think just having that white text and making it so plain just feels like so, like, just thrown in there. Okay. Wow. Sun really, really bright today. Looks like a nice, not saying that works better, but it isn't as egregious as what I saw. Yeah. I really like the Toxie series too, Stoops. I thought it was really, really fun. Look, the Jesus Christ, I love sacrilegious stuff. So the Jesus Christ, oh, we're getting a really cool sun shower. Maybe this is the day I finally show you outside my window. Oh, but then I'll unplug from everything and it'll break. You know what? We're going for it. We're taking this show on the road. All right. I'm going to have to unplug the good microphone for a second. Okay. Oh, okay. We're still connected. Here we go. Now you can see the window side of the room. Oh, okay. Okay. Will this actually work? So here's, look, I have like mountains in the distance. How cool is that? Don't dox me. Don't try to figure out where I'm living based on that. But yeah, we're having this crazy sun right now, which I guess maybe you can. Let's get back to the good life over here where we're supposed to be. Oh, okay. Okay. Back to the good microphone. Okay. Tamara Boundvillain, the best colorist. Do I have a favorite Cap run? I don't really know a lot of pre-2000 Cap. I mean, I love Brubaker Cap. At some point, I need to read like Kirby Cap and DeMatteis Cap. It's one of those things where I kind of know them vaguely because I've done guides about them, but I don't really know the material super, super well. Yeah. Simultaneously listening to Krisis and watching WWE's all-women premium live event Evolution. Remember when the biggest complaint about Star Wars was Ewoks? Yeah. Yeah. Jamie C47 recently finished Stern's Avengers. So good. The run ends with Monica Captain Marvel as the leader of the Avengers, a strong black female character as the leader and carrying Marvel name. What happened? Yeah, Stern's Avengers is so good for developing all the women characters. Wasp is really interesting in Stern's Avengers. Captain Marvel is really interesting in Stern's Avengers. Stern, I mean, there's a reason that run is as revered as it is. It's really, to me, that's like core Avengers. That to me, like, proves what Avengers can be. It's organized so well. There's good big stories in it, but there's good one-off stories as well. Highly recommended for folks who have never read it. Tyler Smith is here. Hello. Good evening to you as well. I'm still going strong. I definitely talked about some of your books this week. And now we're just at the end. We're going to, a road trip. Everybody is on the move. Yeah. Mountains in the distance. Yeah. Totally just the beautiful, beautiful view right outside of my window here. Okay, folks, I made it to the bottom and you didn't talk enough to keep going after I took you on the road. So that means our stream is over. This week is still school break, so I'm going to spend as much time with Kid Krisis as I can before she heads back. But who knows how crazy work will be. I was down. I only had 2 books left to read from this group, and I was going to stream last Thursday, and then I kind of had an explosion of work stuff, and I was like, the day was getting later and later, and I was finishing work stuff. And I was like, I could get online now. And it got to the point that the stream wouldn't have even started until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night for you and the East Coast and the States. And I was like, it's just too late. So maybe there'll be more streams this week. Maybe not. Who knows? But Omar is on vacation, so there'll be no me on Near Mint Condition this week. And no OmniDog this week. So maybe I'll turn up on my own channel again. Or maybe not. Actually, almost certainly I will turn up and do that haul around the world once that book gets here from Custom. So there will at least be that this week. I guarantee you, I'm not going to let all those books just sit around the shelf. Once they get here, we're going to need to shelf them. So, thank you so much for being here. This is a really fun stream. Love to be done before the 3-hour mark for a change, but that happens when we only have 46 books that I've read. I'm going to continue to try to catch up to present. I so much appreciate you being here. As you all know, and if you're new, maybe you don't know, I always go back and rewatch the stream at like 5 times speed, just so I can see all of your comments and get to like really read each of your chat comments one at a time and like appreciate them, because it's hard to fully focus on that here while I'm doing the stream live. So I just want you to know that like your participation in this matters to me. I do think of it as a conversation, even if it is 3 straight hours of me talking unbroken. So until I see you for that haul around the world, until I maybe see you for another pull list, please take care of yourself. This world, it's not doing us any favors right now. So we got to do each other favors. We got to treat people well. We've got to show people, oh, pardon me, I've got some hiccups right now. We got to show people love, and we've got to show people that we value them for the person that they decide to be, as long as they're choosing to value other people. So as long as we're all doing that out in the world, I think we're going to set up a pretty good world, and that's the world we can make for each other, because, you know, we don't have Dr. Doom taking over our world to make sure we're all being nice. So trans rights are human rights. Treat everybody with respect, and please just be careful with yourself. You're the best resource that you have. And until I see you again later this week or next week, please try not to have a crisis, unless, of course, it's more of me.